we'll direct you. Okay. Only the short-handed. Okay, good evening, everybody. I don't know who called this meeting in the middle of summer, but somebody did, so somebody's to blame. Okay, this is the July 10th meeting of the Development Governmental Relations Subcommittee of Holyoke City Council. With me, Councilor Mike Sullivan, Councilor Joe McGivern, Councilor Pete Tallman. I'm the chairman. The meeting minutes are on the agenda first, but we got them kind of late, so we're just going to leave them on the table. And so that'll lead us to the second agenda item. So if I could get a motion to take out the table and open the public hearing.
Item number 2 off the table and open up the public hearing for the special permit for Quabbin.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor? Aye. The motion's approved. Councilor Valentin is also with us as well. Let's see, special permit application of Quabbin ACM LLC for a commercial drive-through at 473 and 495 Pleasant Street. So, we have the applicant here. We have his engineer here. This is a public hearing, so what we're going to do is we're going to hear from the applicant on what is it they propose. We may or may not make comments initially, and then we'll open up to the public, and the public can speak to us, and we're happy to have you here. If the public's going to speak on this, either for or against, I just humbly ask that you give your name, your address, and you cap it at 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. I'm going to watch the clock too, so if you want to make a speech, this isn't the place for it, but you can get your point across in 2 minutes or less. Okay, and this goes for all the public hearings. Okay, so the applicant, okay, is this mic on? Just check.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Why don't you just introduce the LLC, introduce yourself, and tell us what's happening.
Good evening. I'm Rob Levesque from our Levesque Associates. I'm here this evening for the special permit that was submitted for the proposed Dunkin' Donuts and retail facilities to be located at the corner of Hamden and Pleasant Streets here in Holyoke. Before you, off to your right, you have a site plan that we've produced in association with the special permit. That site plan details in a schematic fashion the proposed use. There is a 1,900 square foot Dunkin' Donuts building located on the upper right hand corner near Hamden and Pleasant, right near the corner.
Hey, Ms. Levesque,
yes,
would
sir.
it be easier if you could stand next to the map?
It would be great.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have you pick up that microphone there, this one right here, and pretend you're Monty Hall. And then, all right, so watch the course here. Okay, so that's on, and then, okay, you're good for that.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Great, thank you. Again, Hamden Street here, Pleasant Street. Hamden is a one-way, Pleasant two-way. We have Dunkin' Donuts proposed on the corner. This is a 1,900 square foot building. This is your typical Dunkin' Donuts. I have an elevation on the other side to show you what this will look like, but it's the standard Fresh Brew logo and the color scheme that you've been seeing the last few years. So this is the front side of the building. We'll be entering off of the side and kind of the back side of the building. All of the Dunkin' Donuts have a walk-in cooler, so that's kind of hidden off of the back side here. Obviously, with the traffic coming down Hamden, we wanted to present the best image from the corner. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. We also have 2 proposed retail spaces. They're about 1,900 square feet each. We have a total of 61 parking spaces. What we've done is kind of an interesting arrangement to get the building out on the corner that the franchisee really needed, and then also to make sure we could accommodate retail spaces. We have kind of an interesting arrangement where we have people coming through the parking area. We have a dedicated, and we try to do this anywhere we can with the Dunkin' Donuts, we try to do a dedicated drive-through lane with a bypass lane so that there will be no interaction between people within the facility, and we get the required stacking spaces independent of the parking within the general parking area. So you won't have folks backing in and out. If you do, it won't affect the immediate drive-through lane. We have the required 5 spaces, and then we have the 8 spaces from the drive-through lane to the end here. We've been working with the planning department, specifically Jeff Burkott has given us comments that I believe the planning board gave a recommendation. That planning board recommendation had, I think, about 15 or 20 comments, all of which I've reviewed with Mr. Burkott, and we anticipate in addressing all of those. I didn't see anything on the list that we don't anticipate addressing. We've already begun that. However, we do have a team meeting this coming Thursday with the members of the roundtable process, engineering department, et cetera. Once we meet with those folks, we'll then go to, we'll submit the full drawings to the planning board, which I'm expecting will happen on or about the 14th. If there's any other items to address, it might take a couple days longer, but we would fully expect to be in within the next cycle or the very next cycle after that with the planning board. So we're here this evening for the use, making sure that the use makes logical sense in the zone. We had VHB conducted a traffic analysis of the surrounding intersections. We've communicated with the neighbor next door, Eddie's Furniture. There is a passageway along this side that was important to figure out. We have a registered land surveyor in my office that has done the research to figure out the passageway and how that works. And essentially what happens is either owner owns to the center line of that passageway, which is the Stark line here. So that's the actual property line. And then on either side of the passageway, there is a portion that either owner has the right to pass and repass along with the other owners and other folks in the town. So there is the ability to utilize this passageway. So what we've done is in our site planning efforts, we've kept off of that. We've kept that unencumbered. Our parking lot, our parking spaces don't affect that. There's also some utility lines back there that we didn't want to mess with either. So that's the gist of what we're proposing. There's procedurally a couple changes, as I believe the councilors are aware. You've recently had some changes to section 7.1.6, I believe it is, 7.1.6, which dictates how we submit and what the procedural requirements are, as well as the design requirements for a drive-through. So we're updating our plans with some minor sections, in association with those sections. So we're updating a little bit, but wanted to let you know that we are aware of that change. And we anticipate that the site plan that you see here, although we're adding detail to it, will be very similar to what gets submitted to the planning board, and we will certainly provide that to you prior to the city council meeting. Be happy to come back if necessary. Thank you.
Okay, councilors have questions? Councilor McGivern?
Just a quick question. Mr. Reck, you know that tonight is only about the drive-through.
Yes, sir.
And our job is use and whether the drive-through fits this property or not. So it's good to know the full proposal, but what we're dealing with is a drive-through. I see 13 cars are stacked. This drawing is correct in terms of dimensions.
That's correct.
Did the planning board or the planning department have any issues with the egress on Pleasant Street and any backup, if there was backup of more than 13 cars?
We have the ample requirements. I believe Mr. Burkott did have a question on he wants to make sure that cars entering off of Pleasant don't have a stacking problem out into the street, which is understandable. That's typically taken care of from an operational point of view. I guess the best way to put it is if there's cars stacking beyond that, there's an operational issue with the Dunkin' Donuts. All of these new Dunkin' Donuts are outfitted much different than the old ones. They go through a retrofit about every 10 years. So a lot of the equipment, the timing that they're allowed to let people wait is all dictated by the Dunkin' Donuts corporate. So bottom line is, this is ample space. This absolutely will be ample space. We did do a bypass lane, an escape lane, in the event somebody wanted to get out because they didn't want to wait, they can get out. But we feel confident that this will function very well, especially with the new interior workings of the Dunkin' Donuts.
And my only final question is the buffer zone. What landscaping are you promising the city that will be there?
We're committed to working with the planning department with whatever they require. There's a buffer along the residential property that's required. If that's seen as not being ample, we're certainly willing to work with that, add additional landscaping. In addition to that, there were some pedestrian questions from the planning department. Specifically, they wanted to make sure that pedestrians wouldn't be cutting across to get to the building into the across the drive-through lane to get to the building. So they talked about having a fence of some sort, probably a black aluminum looking like a wrought iron fence, something like that. That would be attractive, but also it would direct people or funnel people into pedestrian crossings, which we've talked about as well. So we talked about adding maybe 2 or 3 pedestrian crossings to the building, I'm sorry, to the site. And we have already added that to our plans that will be submitted to the planning board. So we're really working,
And this submitted is the same as what's on the board, correct?
that is correct.
Yeah.
That is
Thank you.
Councilman?
Yeah, I have a question on entering Hampden Street, because that's where I think a lot of the traffic coming up may go into there. Do they come in with that and go around? They have to come through the whole parking lot to go around to go to drive-through?
So if they're heading
North,
westbound,
west.
westbound on Hampton, they can take a left onto Pleasant and then come in this way. That would be the most logical. But they can also, as a secondary route, come in here, and that would just be not as advantageous. I think this would be the most logical route.
Right, yeah, I'm just thinking that a lot of people would come straight up, they might want to take the left off of Hampden instead of taking a left, taking a right,
Yeah.
My concern is the traffic, the queuing or whatever on Hampden Street, because that's where most of the traffic comes up.
Right.
That's my concern, because, where they go in on the Hampden Street side, will they, if there's cars there,
Right.
the light is right there, that's my concern.
Right. So you're worried about cars stacking back this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there should be a free access for cars to get in and out of here. So really, the only concern would be if you did have a car backing out, that could slow things up. But other than that, we have we're actually beyond. Our initial plan was beyond the maximum drive aisle width. We initially had 12, a little gourd island in between, and then another 12. They would like us to neck that down to 22. We expect working through that with the planning department. We're not fighting that now, but we would like a little bit more. We think that provide a little bit better access, but we're going to work with the planning board on what they want.
Okay. And can you explain a little bit again to the drive, the access and the alleyway, basically, with the neighborhood Eddie's Furniture?
Yes, sir.
How that's going to work?
Yep, so if you can see this, it's going to be hard, but you see this darker line right here? That's the property boundary, okay? On either side of that, you'll see offset 8.5 feet on either side. There's another lighter dashed line. It's going to be hard to see on this plan. But, so that width between here and here it's called a passageway. And that passageway, there's rights to pass and repass, and there's rights for either owner to utilize that, and the owner's down here to utilize that. So we haven't controlled that or taken any of that land into account in our site planning. We've kept our site plan off of it. There's an offset to the nearest parking space, so that will be unencumbered for folks to come back and forth on that passageway as they have been for hundreds.
They haven't, okay. 'Cause
many
my
years.
concern was the delivery or the trucks, if they're big tractor trailers, they may have before utilized that parking lot to turn around, and now they may not have that option with the
I think
the
that's
lot.
accurate. A lady in the audience had, I believe, maybe a relative of Eddie's Furniture had asked that question. So in terms of maneuvering into this site, that's really not going to be an option in the future because of the retail space. There's utility poles right along the edge here. So, I mean, I don't know how much maneuvering there was done, but maybe they did utilize it. But in the future, based on the purchase of the property, that would be part of the subject property, part of the proposed development. There may be a time before these get developed that, there might be an area, but certainly when these are developed, I don't see anybody
Okay.
being able to do 3-point turns or maneuvering trucks, large vehicles in that
Okay.
area.
And on that south side, you're going to have some type of blockage, some kind of growth there, because it seems
Yeah,
like
there's
there's a hill there
buffering
next to the block or whatever.
Absolutely. There's buffering required, and if we haven't provided enough, this is more in a schematic fashion, but we certainly have a detailed site plan and landscaping plan that's been provided.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Vellon?
Thank you. Hopefully the wobbly microphone works. Thank you for bringing in the full picture, even though, as Councilor McGivern mentioned, it's really about the drive-through tonight, but I think it's helpful. In terms of the entry on Pleasant Street, do you know, now knowing that the church is on the other side, do you know if that entrance is across the street from right before where the brownstones start? Is it like that big kind of you know, if you were to look across the street, what would that match up with? Do you know?
I believe it's with the church parking lot, but I might,
Okay,
might be
because,
off.
I mean, so I'm trying to figure out based on, you know, the dimensions here in comparison, you know, with the church and kind of what is across the street, because,
this is the church
Yep.
parcel. Yep. And then there's another parcel here, and then, is there a restaurant over here?
Mel's,
Mel's?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're thinking the entrance that you're proposing, which would be the primary for the drive-through, even though we know a lot of people are going to be racing up Hamden Street on their way to 91. I need to stop at Dunkin' Donuts because the Northampton Street one is a mess, right? And we should talk about that. In comparison
do
to,
that one.
in comparison to this model, I mean,
Yeah.
because that is a big concern for people. But, so I'm trying to figure out, oh my God, this microphone's awful. I'm trying to figure out if that entrance matches up with the church and Mel's parking lot, or if it's further down. You know, I'm just trying to see kind of
I might be
where,
able to-
where that would be.
When it's appropriate, I might be able to pull it up on my phone and show you where it would.
Just so folks can have an idea of kind of, you know, how far down Pleasant it would look. As I said, one of the main, I'm the ward counselor for where this would be, so I've heard a lot about this, good and bad, opinions from residents. And, you know, one of the main concerns is, for sure, the folks that are flying up Hamden, trying to get in here. Just using the Northampton Street Dunkin' Donuts as a comparison, there's a huge issue there with queuing. And I think that's a really big concern. So I am happy to see that obviously the space for the queuing inside the lot would obviously be much bigger because of the area, the size of the parcel. But that is definitely a concern that I've heard from residents, and it's, I think, a valid one. In terms of the Hamden Street side, if you could tell me if that matches up with the entrance on the other side or the exit of the bank from when they're coming from outside of that bank?
Not exactly, but it is across from the bank.
No, I know it's across from the bank,
Yeah.
but we don't know if it line. I'm just trying to see what the competing entrances and exits are, because that's the main concern I'm hearing from my residents.
Okay.
Everyone talks about, we want business, we want things to be back on tax rolls. This lot has been empty forever and ever, but there are valid concerns regarding the flow of the traffic, and I would love if you or Quabbin or whoever can email me any information you have about the traffic study, anything that I can share with my residents to, you know, appease their concerns. I think obviously is beneficial for everyone in the end, but I guess it would just be helpful to have a visual, especially for folks that are watching from home, on where these entrances and exits pair up with in terms of the other businesses and
I
parcels.
think what would be helpful is we could certainly provide a graphic that had an aerial photograph behind it, so you could see the surrounding buildings,
Okay.
all the curb cuts.
Yep.
You can do
Because that is one of the biggest questions is,
Yeah.
you know, these entrances and exits.
Yep. We do have some flexibility with the new 7.6.1 or 7.1.6, whatever it is, the drive-through section. Initially, we were required to have this curb cut at a specific location because it had to be a minimum of 50 feet from the nearest driveway. That has been eliminated from the new section, so there is some flexibility, and we are looking at, I'm going to talk to the roundtable process and the planning board about maybe shifting this ever so slightly this way. But we do have some flexibility now in where that goes, so, you know,
I
we
mean,
can look at the bank as well.
I'm not an engineer, but I would assume the farthest from the light would probably be,
Yeah.
I would think, it's just that light changes and, you know, the Fast and the Furious are
There's a-
happening, so.
There's a logical location right off of this drive aisle that would probably be ideal,
Okay,
an ideal location, and that's where we're looking at right now.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You got something else, man? Yeah, I'm going to hold off on my questions for right now, but stay there, Mr. Beck.
Yes, sir.
Don't leave town. Anybody from the public want to speak on this topic? So just a reminder, if you would just introduce yourself with your name and your address, and then,
Hello, my name is Laura Hicks from Eddie's Furniture, 856 Hamden Street, Holyoke. Our biggest concern is the 18-wheelers that deliver furniture. Eddie's has been a furniture store since the 1750s. Obviously, one of the longest.
Did you say 1750s?
I changed it. It's the 1950s.
Gonna say.
Sorry, a long, long time.
Wow. I was gonna say,
Anyway,
that'd be pretty cool.
okay, so these
Pre-Revolutionary War. I had
18-wheelers,
no idea.
these 18-wheelers need to come up Hamden Street. They cannot pull in straight and back out. So if they pull in straight to come to the warehouse, how would they access out? And if they cannot access out, then they are going to have to come up Hamden Street and park on the left side of Hamden Street to unload while we carry the furniture all the way back to where the warehouse is.
Yeah, that's not a winner, right? Okay, so right now, Ms. Hicks, currently your delivery vendors travel west on Hampton Street, and
Sir.
then they turn a left into that aforementioned alleyway. Now, do they back down or they pull in nose first?
They pull in nose first.
Okay.
They pass the store entrance to the back part of the building.
All right, and then how do they get out?
They
Okay.
generally do a three-point turn and come back out of Hamden Street. Is that correct? And come back out onto Hamden Street and up to
Now,
91.
to do a three-point turn,
Would you like to?
well, hold on, let's just do it
He would
one-
know better
one-
than I do.
One Eddie's Furniture at a time. So, they pull in, they do a three-point turn on your property, or do they have to cross over to the?
Some of it crosses over, yes,
Some of
sir.
it crosses over, okay,
Yes,
all right,
sir.
so and has that always been the case? So even when there was a tenant building there, they'd always had some elbow room to sort of cross over onto your butter's property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, if there was a possibility for them to just scoop around and come out on Pleasant Street and take a left and then take another left, that might solve the problem. But
That doesn't-
if we're not allowed to have the trucks come in, our only option to keep running our family business
Yeah.
is to have the delivery trucks park on Hampden Street.
Or
While we-
they could back out, I suppose, right? Is that?
You're not allowed to back out with an 18-wheeler onto the track.
Okay, so I'm
And,
gonna let you
and,
say that on
and
the
if we
microphone. Okay.
did, if we could,
All right.
can you imagine, as you folks have already said about traffic flow, we would have to have our employees walk out onto Hampden Street with stop signs and hold up traffic while an 18-wheeler backs out,
Right.
which can take 10 minutes,
Now, how-
15 minutes.
And how often do you get deliveries, just so I have a sense?
You'd have to ask the delivery people, so if you want to wait.
Between 10 and 30 trucks a week.
Okay, so I'll have you repeat that on the mic so people can hear you, but, okay, so thank you, Ms. Hicks.
Thank you.
Mr. Levesque, do you want to address her, take with the microphone, please? So, with the mic. Hate to be the hall monitor, but it seems to be falling on my shoulders at every single meeting. What's your sense as to, I think you get a feel for her,
I do.
for their family concerns, so what's your sense?
I do, and, I think to be, give you a basic answer, we haven't designed for Eddie's Furniture. I have a franchisee who is very specific about not wanting easements on the property. I think the folks from Quabbin, our local gentlemen, they would like to work with Eddie's Furniture to the extent possible. But as you can imagine, a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee is not looking to have easements on a property through a site that they need to make sure functions. Obviously, everybody's concerned about the function of the drive-through and everything else. So we do understand the concern. I think operationally, they'll have to find a different solution. I don't think what we've proposed will accommodate
Your
a
guys
solution.
came to my store and made it like they were ready to work with me. Your guys came to my store and made it ready to work with me.
Okay, so,
Sorry. Excuse me.
it's okay, so we're early in the stage here, we're early on, so, and then everybody get a chance to speak. Just while we have a minute here, Councilor Rahman has joined us as well, and I thought I saw Councilor Leahy somewhere, so he's here too, so, so Ms. Levesque, no, I get that, that was an obvious point there, that they're not designing for Eddie's Furniture, yeah, we copy that, but, nevertheless, with the alleyway that's there, and so I see the two buildings that are, so the main event is Dunkin' Donuts, and we know that.
Yes, sir.
The two buildings that are proposed, are they, what's the developer's pleasure at this point? Are they going to be constructed simultaneously at this juncture, do you think?
We don't believe so. We
You
believe,
don't- you
we
don't-
believe that they would be phased.
You believe they'll be phased?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have, and the phase could be, what, from 1 day to 37 years, or what's the phase?
I think it's going to be market-driven. I don't think it will be in the first year.
Okay,
I think if they have a tenant, somebody that's interested based on the traffic from the Dunkin', you could likely see it within a couple of years, but I really don't know.
okay. So right now, we have, the developer has a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, sir.
Right now, the developer does not have anybody for the two little rectangular-shaped buildings in the back corner.
It's my understanding that the relationship is that the Dunkin' Donuts franchisee will be purchasing the property from the developer. Is that accurate? And they will own and operate this location, and that in the event that they can find tenants, they will build out these two spaces.
Do those two spaces necessarily have to be there, in your opinion?
From the Dunkin' Donut, in my opinion, no. From a market point of view, based on my conversation with the franchisee, absolutely. They're not interested in location without them.
Are they interested in, and this is going to be on, I get the fact that we're a commercial drive-through, just so the public knows, we do this all the time, okay? So we always go beyond the scope, so don't think this is unusual, us asking questions, and we can ask any questions we want. So just so you know, so we do this constantly. We're not limited in scope to what questions we ask, okay? Okay, so, and this is the first time we're hearing this too, so just all right, so that's, all right, so it looks like there's a couple, all right, well, that's new information. So those two buildings are down the road a little ways, at least, it sounds like a minimum of a year.
I would think so.
But maybe a little bit longer. Okay, we're still in, well, we're going to be in public hearing for a while, but Ms. Hicks spoke. Anybody else want to speak at this stage? Yes, sir. Just same thing, name and address.
Yeah, I am Josh Hicks. Oh, that's real loud. I'm Josh Hicks. I'm at 856.
Okay, Josh.
I mean, you very politely described that you are not willing to have, I mean, you're not interested in, or you're not really taking us into account. But I mean, it's just going to destroy the traffic in the front if you have a Dunkin' Donuts right there with the 2 lanes right here racing to the 1 lane, people coming into the Dunkin' Donuts, cutting the lane, turning, taking that left right there with the bank. I mean, if you're talking about traffic, the only thing that we're going to have to do to, you know, survive is have those tractor trailer trucks be in the middle of that street all the time, and that will be your fault. You know, that doesn't. So as far as traffic flow, and that's really that's the matter at hand. It doesn't make any sense. And we've been there since 1856. We were a horse barn for a long time. So I mean, we've been there forever. And when the old building was there, we were able to pull forward to make that 3-point turn. And that back then, it was legal to back a tractor trailer truck out, and now it is not.
Okay, as you indicate to me off mic, but just so I can repeat it, that to back a tractor trailer out is,
As far to my knowledge and what the tractor trailer truck drivers tell me, it is against DOT regulation to back a tractor trailer truck out onto oncoming traffic.
okay, and so, and what, since you've been getting deliveries by tractor trailer truck,
I mean, a
there's been enough,
53-foot
there's
trailer.
been enough room for them to do a, 3-point turn or whatever it is, to sort of circle back around and go out
Right.
nose first.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as working together, you've played, you don't want to, but you have to, so I guess. I mean, you don't have to, but it only makes sense as far as what the actual debate is, and that was the traffic flow. It would just be a complete, it would be a terrible thing. That would be an awful place to drive. It'd be like Springfield. And that's what I got to say.
Okay, so, thanks, Mr. Hicks. You want to ask Mr. Hicks? Yeah. Mr. Hicks, just come back to our microphone for a sec. Councilor Sullivan wants to ask you a quick, Councilor Sullivan?
Did I get in trouble?
Thanks, Josh.
No. You're fine.
Have you ever worked with any of the manufacturers that you buy from are requested. We used to do quite a bit of shipping ourselves, and just to request deliveries on a straight job instead of a tractor trailer. I know a lot of.
I mean, no, it wouldn't work. I mean, if you get 60 pieces of sofas, I mean, we're not gonna have customers wait because that doesn't make any logical sense. Hold on. Would they know? He really is very nice.
Okay, so
It would be completely illogical. There would be 100%
I think you're,
a misstep. in
I
logic.
think you're answering my question. You have that many pieces delivered at one time that they come on a tractor trailer.
Right, and it would be impossible to
They'd have to make-
negotiate.
they'd have to make-
It would exponentially increase the amount of work for us for no reason.
You'd be asking them to make multiple trips on a straight
Would
job.
be asking too much.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. That was my question.
All right, thanks. Okay. Any other members of the public want to address us on this topic? Well, yes, you can, yep.
I think the reason why my brother-in-law is upset is that when they first came to the Hicks family to discuss this plan, they said, we want to work with you, we want to make it so you can still have trucks, and to have this gentleman just blatantly say, no, we don't want to do anything with you. It's painful. And what they're asking you to do would very negatively hurt our business. It would make it extremely difficult to almost impossible to receive furniture, and it would create a huge bottleneck on Hamden Street for those trucks to be sitting out there. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to, thank you, Ms. Hicks, I really appreciate it. So, stick your glasses, Mike. Okay, so, and we're in a public hearing until we close the public hearing, okay? So what's gonna happen tonight is, yeah, sure. Let me explain this, just so how the process works from our end, so just so we're all aware. So we're in a public hearing, and so we can do one of several things. We can vote on this tonight, so we would have to, close the public hearing, right? Or we can, and the vote could go yes or no, right? So, but however we vote, we just recommend to the full city council. So that's how it works. Or we could probably table to see if we want to elicit additional information. Okay, so that's a possibility as well. That happens a lot. And if we do table it, we have to continue it to a date certain. So this is a subcommittee that's summertime, so I don't know when we would meet again. I have to talk to the gentleman on the panel here to see when we can meet. So there's that. And so I'm just one vote, so it's majority rules. That's how it works. I do have a couple of opinions I have one from, that we received around 3 o'clock today. So it's not like we've had ample time to study these. I do have a letter from the planning board. I do see the director is here, so he may or may not want to step in. And I do have a letter from the Board of Public Works, which I'm not going to read verbatim, but I'm just going to, so I'll just do it one at a time here. So I'm just going to skim just to hit the highlights. So the first one is from the planning board chairman, and the planning board chairman talks about a few things. Well, he talks about hours of the drive-through, so we haven't addressed that at all. He talks about the width of the roadway. He talks about the stacking equation. Talks about circulation, pedestrian access. Talks about buffer and setbacks. At no point in here does this planning board address anything within a butter. So there's that. Then the Department of Public Works steps in, and it's a letter from the general superintendent, and these are both dated today. So these are public record, and I can provide these to anybody who wants a copy. The Board of Public Works. Let's see, the Board of Public Works agrees that the proposed use is appropriate for the site. However, we have strong reservations that a special permit application site plan with regards to 7.16 is we have some reservations, whether or not it's approvable. So, again, they talk about stacking, the stacking lane, pedestrian access, and traffic impact. So, so right now, at this point, there is no traffic impact study submitted with a special permit. The draft traffic impact study refers to figures and tables were not included. Furthermore, the draft traffic impact study indicates that Hampden Pleasant Street intersection is identified as a, quote, crash cluster. Never heard that phrase. But doesn't discuss the impact on site traffic at this intersection. DPW also has other concerns that will be, well, it says resolved, but I think he means addressed during the site plan approval process, such as curb cut location, storm drainage, alley improvements, okay, and then lighting. So, and one of the things I forgot to say is that, you know, I indicated earlier, we have, you know, we're only voting on the drive-through, right? That's what we're voting on the drive-through. But let's face it, folks, there's, you know, whatever is going to be put there is going to be impacting all sorts of people around there. And so, you know, we always do this. We always say it's just for this narrow issue, but really this board, we look at a broad range of things, and then we make our vote thereupon. But I want to, that preface means to say there are other steps in the process. There is planning board, there's a board of public works. Ultimately, our authority only comes down to the drive-through. That's ultimately where it hones in. So I want to say, I mean, so these gentlemen are going to vote the way they vote, and I'm going to vote the way I vote, again, as a recommendation to the full city council. And then, as you know, we meet first and third Tuesdays. Our next scheduled meeting is August 1st. If this comes out of committee tonight, it would go on the August 1st agenda for the drive-through only, not for anything else to do with site plan review, not to do with the alleyway. So I want you to be aware of that too. Okay, so that's enough of me. Does anybody want to, does anybody else want to, now that we've had a spiel, does anybody else want to address this body with any other relevant information? Okay. We have the application. Ms. Levesque, I think we are, does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Levesque while he's, or can he sit down? Is it, no?
Can I clarify a couple items?
Oh, of course.
Just a few
Please,
seconds
yeah,
to be
please.
brief.
Yeah.
So we did meet with the folks from Eddie's Furniture. It's not that I personally or that the current proponents don't want to work with Eddie's Furniture. We have a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee that was very clear to us that they do not want tractor trailer trucks. As you can imagine, a new facility, one that's this traffic intensive, they don't want to have to deal with vehicles maneuvering in and out of their property. They're buying a property. I don't know what they're paying for it, but I'm sure it's a lot, and they want to make sure it's going to function properly. So that was the concern. So it's not that we're trying to hurt a business. There is the passageway, and it does continue out down to the next street, whether or not they can get through down there, but that would be all one way. But it's a reality. I mean, it's a reality. It does continue through.
Tractor trailer into Beacon Street.
Oh, no, not the Beacon Street. No, that's okay. Hold on. Well, hold on. We'll let him finish, and then you can come right up to the mic and say what you got to say. Okay. Go ahead.
So, as far as the, there has been a traffic study submitted, a full traffic study with all the appendices, that's been provided by VHB. I believe they were given, somehow there was something was lost in translation. So there is a full traffic study with all the accoutrements, and they have that, planning department has that. If the DPW does not have that, we can make sure that that's circulated to them.
Yeah, this letter's dated today, so apparently
Yeah.
we didn't have it.
Yeah, so, not sure, but it has been submitted.
Okay. Well, one thing, hours of operation, Ms.
Yes,
Levesque?
24/7.
24 hours. Okay,
Yep.
that's the proposal?
Yes, sir.
So Dunkin' Donuts, really?
They would like to operate it 24/7, yeah. That was directly from Peter Martin, the franchisee.
Okey dokes.
I was surprised, but yeah.
Well, there may be other surprises. Okay, so, all right, let's just think here for a second. Okay, Miss, come on up, Miss, come on to the microphone. Yes, sir. Again, your name, I already got the address. cookie. Go ahead.
I'm Joe Hicks of Eddie's Furniture
All right,
Club.
Joe.
For many years, there was an easement there. The Adelsons owned that block that the city tore down because the government gave a grant. It was a big block there. And of course, 475 Pleasant. They tore it down. It was a great boom to our business, of course. And we started doing tons of business. And a lot of our business is with the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We sell tons of furniture to poor people. Tons. That's half my business. We got trailer trucks coming in there. You couldn't believe it. Unbelievable.
Hey, Joe, how many a week?
How many what?
How many trailer trucks a week would you guess?
I'm not going to exaggerate because I'm not going to lie. I'd love to say 5,000, but the true answer,
Well, I mean, a week.
I know, a week. 20.
20 a week? Okay.
20. That's a lot. That's 3 a day. And we had an easement for many years between that block and Fragilio's property. Now, you guys, these guys own Fragilio's? You own the next property over?
I don't think so, Joe. No.
No,
we're only
so
talking-
that still belongs to somebody else.
Right.
For years, there was an easement between there, and our trucks could come in, go out that alley, hit Mel's, take a left or right. Okay? And then, if we went straight down the alley, the people down there complained because the trucks made so much noise on Beacon Avenue.
Okay.
So now, and I understand, I respect the property owner. I couldn't believe it when these guys came to my store and they acted like, "Oh, Joe, we want to work with you. We want, I told people, I said, wow, these guys are really nice. These guys from Mr. Lavelle, I guess, somebody. I thought that was really nice. Wow, they really respect we've been there since 1870. That's a lot of years. My family's been there since 1870. And we sell furniture to poor people. The state buys our stuff and gives it to poor people. And we service them with respect and humility. We make plenty of money from it. Not a lot. And now our property's going to be cut off. And when I heard about it, these guys came to my store and they made like, "Oh yeah, we'll work with you." There was an easement there between us and straight to Mel's Restaurant for years and years and many years. That's probably year 20 legally. Guys, if I don't get this, I don't get it. We'll just keep living. We believe in the Lord.
All right, Joe, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? So you heard the hours, the proposed hours. Is any other questions for Mr. Levesque? No? Mr. Levesque, thank you.
We do want to work with them. However, given the programming of the franchisee, you can look at my plan and see if there's a way to do it. We don't have a way to do it. That's the issue. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I understand that, Mr. Levesque. Thanks. Okay, well, it's why we get the big money, guys. What do you want to do? What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Okay, on the motion to close the public hearing and discussion, that means that we cannot take any additional testimony. Now, one of the things I'm gonna, just while we're still debating this, the 24/7 access, that was, but I mean, you can't, hold on, Council Valentin, we'll recognize you. So, that means that there's no discussion about the 24/7 access, so I just want you to realize that, or whatever else, any other, or the turnaround or anything else, or the buildings, or anything, so, Council Valentin.
Thank you. I've been following this, obviously, because it's in my ward, for quite a while, and for those of you who've been following this parcel that we as a city took from Eric Sewer for basically not doing anything with it for a very long time. You know, the folks at Quabbin have been in touch with me throughout the process. There was an original plan of a gas station, and that did not come through, which is how the Dunkin' Donuts plan came through. And a lot of this has also been the folks in my ward that live in that area being very, very vocal about their concerns, and like I said, good and bad. I'm very surprised that that no one is here at this public hearing, because I actually notified them last week as soon as I received the agenda for this meeting. I notified them that this would be taking place today, and I was expecting to see at least maybe half a dozen people here from that neighborhood that would be here to express their thoughts, either for or against. And, you know, people have different plans, they have different commitments, it's the summer, but knowing how much of a conversation this has been in the ward, and of course not minimizing the testimony from the folks at Eddie's Furniture, but myself, I'm right now I'm referring to the residents of that area. I'm surprised that they're not here for the public hearing, and you know, I'm not on the committee, but I'm wondering if the committee would be inclined to leave the public hearing open, because I do think that there are some folks who would want to be heard. So I just wanted to say that for the record.
Thank you. Hey, Ms. Levesque, I just have one question. If the 24/7 is not approved, if that's amended, what impact does that have on the proposal?
I did not have that conversation with the franchisee. I don't know. It's possible that they would still pursue the project. I do not know that answer. The answer I got back was 24/7.
Okay, the one on Northampton Street, that, I don't believe that's open 24 hours, okay? I don't think it is. Mr. Morrell, I want to ask you a question on this, because you're with the HEDIC board. What's HEDIC's proposal with the, so we have, where are we with the sale of this property? So this is a contingency sale, Marcos? Or
It's a sale to Quabbin LLC.
Yeah.
And closing has not occurred.
Right.
The developer is required to amass all the permits before closing.
What are the terms of the sale?
As far as price,
Yes.
$225, I believe.
Okay, and that's between HEDIC and the
HEDIC and
LLC?
Quabbin LLC.
Okay. Okay. 225, all right. Marcus, did you want to add anything else? Did you want to weigh in on this at all? Are you,
I have nothing new to add.
okay. Okay,
Quick question to Mr. Lebrecq.
Levesque.
Lebrecq.
Ms. Levesque, Councilman McGivern.
Lebrecq, sorry. The 24/7, you're not sure if it's negotiable? Is that what you're telling us?
I could clarify. So I work for 2 Dunkin' Donuts franchisees in the area, and some of the more urban locations, they want to be open 24/7. Belmont Ave in Springfield is one. Short answer is, they could tell us that they've told me that they want 24/7. They could kill the deal based on that, or they might say we would accept different hours. In other locations, they've certainly accepted different hours.
Because I doubt the market supports 24/7, but that's just my humble opinion. What's the construction timetable?
From start of construction, they usually have these up in 5 months.
What are they looking at in terms of,
Well, I'm assuming if we got permits by the fall, say September, they might try to pursue it this year. I would think they would have an opportunity to pursue it this year. I can't guarantee that. Probably worst case would be a spring build.
so if we have a meeting, a full meeting, August 1st, and then our next full city council meeting is the first Tuesday in September. Would the first Tuesday in September give them time for construction this year if everything fell in place?
We want to make sure you have ample time to make the right decision, but it's getting tight for this season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Counselor, just, well, Ms. Lebec, maybe you can help this too, because you've got to get approval on site plan review.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when are you next before planning?
We're submitting to planning either on the 14th or shortly thereafter, so a couple days.
Okay, and planning.
And that would put us on to, we'll likely be on to a late, I think it's an early August meeting. or in
Early August meeting,
Yeah.
okay, and the Board of Public Works?
That'll be part of that process. So we'll be meeting with them. They'll review everything, stormwater permit, et cetera, as part of that process.
Okay, so, thank you. So well, I'm the chairman, I can do what I want. So I'm just going to address my friend Joe McGivern, my fellow Ward 3 resident. So Joe, I think I heard where you were going, Joe, and it sounds to me, and you can rebut this if you want, it sounds to me like they're still going to be in the city of Holyoke discussions after our August 1st meeting. So I think your question mark was, could they wait until could we table this possibly, maybe we're going there, and then have an August meeting and get a little clearer picture? Is that where you're going, Joe? Because it sounds to me like they won't be ready in August with the city of Holyoke permitting. Sounds to me like we could possibly go to September. So that's what I'm gonna make a motion, 'cause I can make a motion too. I'm gonna make a motion to table this until after, until a date. I have to get a date certain, don't I? I'm gonna make a motion to table this. Councilor Valentin, are you, if I said August 28th, Councilor Valentin, what would you and your constituents think of that date?
Well, I mean, I would definitely reach out to them again and
Okay.
let them know that the public hearing has remained open,
No, I
right?
understand. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's a flexible day. And you are available that day, Councilor Valentin?
I believe I am. I'll take a look right now.
Okay.
You said August 28th,
I did, that's a Monday.
Monday?
Okay, I'm gonna make, I motion that we table this August 28th at 6:30.
And if someone else said July 31st, Counselor Valentin, what would you say to that?
Let me see. Isn't it a good thing we can see our calendars on our phones? July.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. July 31st.
Well, I can tell you right now, the chairman is not present July 31st.
Oh, the chairman
Chairman's
has.
on vacation that
The
day.
chairman's on vacation. I am available, but whatever is the will of the committee.
I'll recognize you. Councilor Sullivan, go ahead.
Yeah, didn't we already have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, we didn't vote on it. So I can
So
make,
that's, so it's an amendment to table it?
the motion's to table now. The motion to table is on the, motion to continue public hearing, table it, continue public hearing to a date certain. So that's on the,
Yeah, and I just want to, I'd be against continuing a public hearing because we had people that didn't show up. We went through this a little while ago. To continue and continue and continue ad infinitum, public hearings, if they were interested, they should have been here. To keep postponing it, to wait for people to come forward, I'm against that.
Mike, I
As a
agree.
reason for tabling it.
that's not my reasoning for for motioning to continue this, but that's, maybe that's somebody else's reason for voting for it, but that's not my reason. Counselor Roman?
I agree with the chairman. That's the sentence that I was going to put forward, that there's a lot of unanswered questions, and irregardless of, again, not minimizing any of the testimony, just before receiving this and even hearing this testimony now, I think there's still too many unanswered questions, and it still gives us some more working time. So I don't see why this is going to hinder this process.
Now, before August 28th, are the committee members around August 28th? Okay? Okay.
And if we're not,
Joe, we always,
if I could, Mr. Chairman.
yes, Councilman McGinn.
Just on the dates. I think the reason to continue, the only unanswered question is the 24/7 from the franchisee. Every other question an answer has been put in front of us this evening. We may not like all the answers, but they are in front of us. The reason I proposed the 31st is because we're meeting on August 1st. And the reason I asked about the construction timetable is if the developer doesn't meet the construction timetable, the city will not see the benefits of the new construction until sometime into 2018, maybe even 2019. And I was just hoping if we could facilitate the construction timetable, if it's going forward, that would make sense. But I recognize the 24/7 question has to have a solid answer.
Well, I think Councilor McGivern makes a good point. I would only say that that's been a vacant lot for double-digit years, okay? So it's not like this has been looming. I mean, it's looming now, I get it, but that's been a vacant lot for a long time. And to hold it another month, I'm not going to feel bad about it. So that's my opinion. Before us is to continue this to, what did I say? August 28th at 6:30.
I don't mean to complicate your life.
No, you won't. Go ahead.
I just texted the franchisee, and they're willing to accept 5 a.m. to midnight, if that's more palatable. And
Okay.
that's helpful. And if there's something specific that you wanted to propose, I could certainly try to get a hold of it.
All right. It's like the Wheel of Fortune. What you notice, Mr. Hicks, we're down here working, and Wheel of Fortune's on right now. You notice that, Mr. Hicks? You guys are all right. You see any other counselors down here?
Jeopardy starts in 1 minute, though.
Okay. Well, you heard what he said. I would still like us to. Okay, I'm gonna make my motion my motion. So, on the motion table, I'll do a roll call. Council Tallman, this is a motion table. Motion continue public hearing to August 28th at 6:30 p.m. That's a yes. Councilor Tallman is a yes. Councilor Roman
Yes.
is a yes. Councilor McGivern
No.
is a no. Councilor Bartley is a yes. Councilor Sullivan.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. We are, this will be continued until August 28th at 6:30 p.m. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, so just so for our administrative assistant, the vote was yes, Tallman, Roman, Bartley. The nays were McGivern and Sullivan. So if you would just note that, Ryan. Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Oh, Joe, thank you.
Somebody's gotta help you out. That's why
Doing
I'm
some-
the vice chair, you know?
Doing some housekeeping. Thanks, Joe. You're all right. The big guy. The big guy from up on the hill, Mr. McGivern. He's okay. Okay, so, heading west, we have agenda item number 3.
Motion to take up number 3
And open public hearing.
and open a public hearing.
On the motion to take item number 3 off the table and open public hearing, on the motion, all in favor? Aye. That's a unanimous public hearing, special permit application from Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity for a dimensional variation at 270 Pine Street. And with us, we have, hold on, Tim. We have attorney Tim Ryan, our colleague from Springfield, who I think is running for election again. to be back in the City Council in Springfield. Tim, we wish you good luck. Tim, you are addressing this issue on behalf of your client, Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity?
Yes, I am, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Mr. Chairman, and I'm here as a board member of Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity. I'm joined by Holyoke native and also a board member, Bob Perry, Ellen Cody, who's a staff member from our affiliate, as well as Sasha Rosenbuhl, who is also a staff member. This is a lot that the city is working with us to redevelop, and what we're seeking is the variance because it's only 37 and a half feet. It's right below, the frontage is 37 and a half feet, Councilor McGibbon. It's right below the Wisteria House, and it's on the corner of Pine and Hampshire. And as Mr. Levesque would indicate, the zoning in that area requires for a building 60 feet. So obviously, with 37 and a half feet of frontage, anything you put there is under.
Okay, Tim, that's the vacant lot?
That's a vacant lot.
With the super high grass that doesn't seem to get cut once every
Correct.
4 years?
Correct.
So.
I believe it's still city-owned. I don't think we've taken
Yeah.
title.
Oh, you haven't taken title to that?
No, no.
Okay, so this is, oh.
We're working
okay.
with the
Well,
city
then-
to
No, we'll just turn the mirror on us, sorry
Yeah.
about that, but, okay. So, it's still not good, I mean, for crying out loud, we do what we can, but,
Yeah.
you know, the counselors do what they can to try, but that's the city property, that's great, wonderful. Okay, so, on that property, what is it that you want us to grant the variance?
So that we could build a single-family home that would then be sold by Habitat under its program to a qualifying homeowner.
What do you have for a contract? You have a contract with the city of Holyoke now? That can,
It has yet to arrive. We were hoping that we'd get it before today, but it hasn't arrived. But we've been working with the city. We developed a lot
so
over.
is this even ripe? Why are we voting on this if we don't? Why is this before us if we don't have any agreement with the city of Holyoke?
The contract's supposed to be coming. And I don't obviously control the issuance of the contract, but in order for us to move forward with the city, with the contract, we would need the variance. Otherwise, we can't go forward
Okay,
because the
I
lot's
assume
not.
at some point in time, Mr. Marrero, maybe you can help us, we've declared this lot surplus? Have you any idea?
I'm looking up the property card. Was this bought through an auction? This was not done through our office.
Well, this is still owned by the city of Holyoke,
I
apparently.
believe it's still owned by the city, yes.
So if it's owned by the city of Holyoke, and you don't have a contract with the city of Holyoke, a purchase and sale with a contingency in it, well,
We have a contract with the city to develop it.
so Habitat's a preferred developer, which is good news.
Yes.
I'm sure that's, we're excited to hear that.
It just has yet to arrive.
Well, has, Ms. Merrill,
I mean, I can't, this is not the Registry of Deeds, I'm just looking at the assessor's card, but it does says that the owners are Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity, Inc.
My bad, I'm sorry.
the owner is a Greater Springfield,
By our assessor's card, it's not the Registry of Deeds.
And how long have we owned it?
It's happening live. Well, this part isn't up to date because it says 2014. I can look it up on the registry.
Okay. We've been working with the city for a number of years to try and get this through and get it approved. But right now, we need approval to make it usable.
okay, so, all right, so let's just go to the merits of the situation. So, without the variance, what happens on this lot, as far as you're
It's
concerned?
undevelopable. Yeah.
This is, now, we're not the Registry of Deeds, we're not a court of law either, so you don't have to. Oh, Mr. Levesque, you get a 2-for-1 special, is that? Councilor Valentin, thank you so much. I'm sick of being the bad guy.
Thank you.
All right.
Subject property is on the corner. Okay, this is Pine Street here. This is Hampshire.
270.
Jimmy, 270.
Okay, so this is the subject parcel. This is a blow-up of what's going on there. So the street and the street, this is the lot. It's 37.5 feet wide. You're required to have 10-foot side setback, or 10-foot setbacks all around. We have the setback requirement in the front, we do not have it on the two sides. We have 7.5 on either, I'm sorry, 7.75 on either side, so we're a couple, two and change short, okay? And then we have 51 in the back, so we have plenty in the back. So it's the width, it's really the width of the lot that's substandard in the area. The area is 4,125 square feet, and it's required to be 6,000 under the current zoning. And it's required to have 60 feet of frontage, and we have 37.5.
The current zoning is DR?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Actually, that was well put, I appreciate that. Okay, so while we're figuring out who owns this 270 Pine Street
No,
lot.
we own the property, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Habitat
Habitat
owns the
owns,
property,
okay, we've
yes.
confirmed that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Tim, anything else you want to add?
Without the variance, obviously, we can't go forward, because you can't build there.
Okay, so we grant the variance, or we vote to recommend to city council, we grant it August 1st. What's the timeline thereafter, Mr. Levesque or Mr. Ryan?
I do
We're-
not know.
We're looking for the contract from the city to get the funds to build the house. And so I believe it's a year from the signing of the contract to substantial completion. So it's a
Okay, and we're looking to build a
single family.
single family.
I believe it's a 3-bedroom. That's the standard.
There's a plan behind you if you'd like to, I can show it to the council. Just to clarify while we're waiting, it's a special permit we're requesting. It's a subtlety, it's a dimensional variation under the DR zoning district under 8.8.5. So it's it's not an actual variance, it's a special permit.
Thank you,
Mr.
Levesque.
Chairman?
Councilor McGivern?
If I could, we've never, just to clarify for everybody that's here, we've never dealt with dimensional variances, and this is a special permit. DR is one of our newer zones. It's downtown residential, as the city council knows. And because it's downtown residential, the language of the DR zoning says a special permit is necessary if a dimensional width or frontage doesn't meet what the proposed building would be. There's criteria we have to meet. I'm sure you understand the criteria you have to meet to get the special permit. What would the height of the building be?
I believe that's dimensioned.
Is it the same as the existing three-family homes? Is it
Yeah, it's 2 stories.
abutting?
2.5 stories with the gable. This is a good elevation right here.
And the width is narrow. Would, if the permit is granted, what would the buffer on the street side, not Pine Street, but the
Hampshire?
Hampshire Street side be? What type of buffer would there be there for
So there's
open space?
it's really fairly tight to the street line, but there is then obviously the sidewalk and the roadway. So you're 7.75 feet to the property line. So you're pretty tight to the property line, but then you do have obviously the tree belt.
And this is a corner lot, correct?
That is correct.
Then the backyard green space would be closer to the alleyway?
Yeah, approximately 51 feet on the subject property, and then the alleyway itself. Pretty consistent, if you look at the surrounding neighborhood. I have this blow up over here on my board. Shows it pretty well, it's pretty tight in there. These are a little bit bigger, but
And the architectural design would be comparable to the neighborhood?
I believe so.
There's a Habitat home not too far away. Is it the
This
same
would,
proposed?
this would not be the same as the one on Chestnut Street. That was, in order to fit in there, we had to go with the design requirements. This would be, I believe, more of what you see in front of you. A standard clapboard with, I believe, a front porch.
Typical for almost the entire neighborhood, I believe, with the exception of the Philadelphias.
Yeah, with those bricks.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a fence part, is this gonna be fenced off between the sidewalk and the property line? Is it gonna be fenced along there?
It could be.
There's an existing fence there now.
There is an
yes.
existing fence, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that?
Yeah.
Is that fence gonna stay?
It looked like it was in poor condition,
It's
so it
not in
would
good
probably be
condition.
replaced.
Would it be replaced?
we can suggest that, yeah. Yeah. Mr. Perry's nodding yes, so.
Can we make that a condition on a special permit? Would that bother you, Mr. Perry? Okay, all right. All right, so I'm gonna make that motion in a minute, whether that flies, but you never know with this group, you never know. But I think it might fly. Okay, well, I'm good to go, but we want to hear from the public, so Councilor Valentin, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Have you been in contact with the folks in the Blue House, which is the abutting property?
Not that I know of.
Oh, your notice.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's been any conversation since, you were talking about you need space on both sides and...
Well, they have noticed this meeting, Josie, so.
No, I'm just asking if...
Not that I'm
okay.
aware of.
And then, if I remember correctly, just for folks that are at home and for my colleagues, this is, the back of that after the alley would be Walnut. And I actually heard from some folks on Walnut who, obviously are happy that there's a proposed plan to have something there because that lot has been vacant for a long time with the banged up fence we were talking about. And also for reference, this is the block right before that huge building that the city just demolished. That's across from the senior center. So it obviously would, bring that corner together in a much better fashion. Could you just repeat so that I can have the exact numbers, especially for the folks I talked on Walnut Street about, on the shortage that you have? So like what you have right now and what you need.
Okay. So I need 6,000 square feet, and we have 4125, okay? We need a 10-foot setback around all sides. We have that in the front with 13. We are short of that on either side and what we have is 7.75. In the rear, we have plenty with 51 feet. That's to the property line on the alley, and then the alley.
So we're talking literally 2.25 on each side
Correct.
is what you need.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
So the abutting property is number 16,
Yes, sir.
and if I can read the drawing here, that's an existing property. It has 0 setback from the property line,
It appears that way based on the plan. Yes, sir.
and 17 abuts its property line.
I'm sorry.
Number 17,
Right here?
yep,
Yes, sir.
and every other property in the neighborhood doesn't have the proper setback either. Because they're existing. This is a new
Correct.
zoning. So the variance in front of us is for 27 inches on either side.
2.25
Yes,
feet.
27 inches is
27
what
Yes.
we're trying to, what we're trying
we're
to
breaking it down.
Yeah.
shoehorn into fit with the existing properties.
That's correct. That and the area.
I myself don't have a problem with that if that's just what's before us.
Yeah. And then just for my friend, Mr. Perry, my brand new friend, Mr. Perry, and then my old girlfriend, Mr. Ryan, we go back a long time, but we are very familiar with a lot across the street at the corner of Hampshire and Pine. We're very familiar with that lot. In fact, this body, just so you know, that this body had before us a CDBG application to turn that lot into a $115,000 parking lot. Fortunately, we voted unanimously no, and those funds got diverted to do something more legitimate for the city of Holyoke, so like sidewalks and stuff like that. So we're very happy about that. So yes, we are familiar with that lot. And then, as far as I'm concerned, public, from the public, would anyone like to speak for or against this proposal? I see no hands from that, so public is okay. Any counselors want to ask any questions right now, Mr. Levesque? You're okay?
Just a final comment.
Oh, final comment.
Yeah. Just like I said, I mean, I'm happy to see that there's a proposed project. 27 inches is not much. And the folks that I spoke to that are on Walnut, the way they were presenting was, do we have to go to this meeting? It's about they need more space. And I'm like, well, first of all, we need to find out how much space, because obviously 2.25 is not the same as, 10 feet. And so I'm not going to speak for anyone, but I'm going to assume that if I go back to them and say it's 2.25, I'm pretty sure there will be no opposition from the neighbors in that area. Thank you.
Okay, that's great, and want to make the neighbors happy. And it's not your job, that's okay. Maybe it's your job, that's not my job. Okay, so with that being said, actually, we're very happy to have, because we've got some really good development going on in that whole corridor, so that would be really nice to have Habitat up there. So I'd be really excited, at least I would be, because, it's Darierhurst, and then the Taj Mahal, and then you've got East Hampton Bank, and then the CVS right there. So you've got a nice little run of buildings. So that would be very welcome. Okay, so can I get a motion on the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
On the motion to close the public hearing, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Beck, appreciate that. Under discussion, on the motion to grant a special permit, I want to make a condition that a fence, appropriate fence, whatever the developer wants to do, but some kind of a fencing be created, at least on the Hampshire, the Hampshire and Pine Street sides, kind of a more or less equivalent to what's there now, as a condition. Second, that's been seconded. Under discussion, hearing none on the condition to amend. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Make a motion with the, grant the special permit with the amended condition and to grant the dimensional differences that the developer needs.
I'll second that. On Councilman McGivern's motion to grant the special permit with the condition, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so we approved it, and we're going to recommend that to the full city council, and we'll meet August 1st, okay? All right, thank you, folks. Thanks for your time. All right, just, all right, so is that one? Okay. Get a motion to take number 4 off the table?
Second.
On the motion to take item number 4 off the table, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that the city council vote to accept an offer from United Material Management to purchase a parcel of land located 689 Main Street for $30,000. So the parcel contains approximately 0.47 acres of property. The parcel is zoned general industry, or IG, and has been assessed at $24,600. And the mayor's acceptance letter and additional information have been submitted to the council. And so with us is, we got a few folks here. We got Mr. Marrero, Mr. Dijak, Mr. was here, and Mr. LeMay. And so, you want to just come in? Probably be easier. Why don't you just come in, sit down, and yeah, just sit at one of the desks over there. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come on in. Scott, you want to sit at a desk, or you want to sit by the PowerPoint? Okay, so with us we have Marcus Marrero, we have Scott LeMay, John Dijak, Lori Belanger.
We have to keep it. Yeah, unless you got a smaller copy.
You have to leave us with the physical.
Okay. All right, and I'm associate running the PowerPoint. Marcos, you want to set this up for us? Want to get a minute?
Start, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So,
You said give you a minute, or you said start?
well, no, when you're ready to roll, then why don't you set the stage for us, Marcos?
All right, thank you. This is about property at 689 Main Street, also known as Automania. It is just south of 391 on the western side of Main Street. The property was seized for back taxes many years ago and it was a brownfield up to very recently. The city, through our efforts, we secured EPA, federal money for cleanup, as well as state money through mass development. The building was taken down. The building had presence of asbestos, lead paint. There were hydrocarbons in the ground, some nasty stuff from whatever they were repairing. And in fact, there was a little bit more than what we had originally estimated. Fortunately, though, we were able to complete the project under budget. If not within the time frame, we had to go down to the water table and make sure that there wasn't any contaminants there. But that was completed early this year, and after that, it was put out for sale. We received one proposal from United Materials Management for $30,000, which they intend to aggregate with their other properties in the immediate vicinity across the street on, I think it's Berkshire Street, and across the street on Main Street. As they have consolidated their operations, they've made their headquarters here now in Holyoke, bringing their entire employment base, and they have grown over the past several years, so they have need for more space in the immediate vicinity. So that's the general description. I can cede the floor to either Scott LeMay or back to the chair.
Yeah, so Marcos, first of all, congratulations on all that work. What was, do you remember the numbers, Marcos, for the amount that was from mass development and what branch of the federal government? I'm sorry, from
The United
EPA?
States Environmental Protection Agency, we
EPA.
got a $200,000 grant, which is the maximum that they provide for brownfields nowadays.
All right, and then mass development?
And then mass development, we secured 85,000. We didn't end up spending all of the 85, but that's the maximum award that we got from them for the project.
And then when you say they had to dig down to the water table to clean out whatever was?
Well, one of the hiccups is we were required to put monitoring wells to just make sure that the water table wasn't contaminated by anything that was found there. So there isn't any permanent condition that we found there. It's now been closed out.
Oh, it's pretty amazing.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on that to everybody involved. That is nasty business. So, okay, so now this year you put it out to, okay, so we definitely declared that one surplus.
Yes, that one's actually been surplus for a while. I don't think it was even under my tenure here. I think it was
Well, then, at some
surplus
point
for a
the-
while. It just at some point there was a recognition that there was contamination and no one would buy it as with the contaminant. So
Okay.
we had to deal with that.
So that's wonderful, and wonderful. This sounds like a lot of great potential for Springdale. So, but I know we've got did you want to have one of the other city staff speak? Or do you want Mr. LeMay to sort of address what's happening?
That's fine. Yeah, you can
So,
talk
Mr.
about
LeMay,
it.
why don't you turn the mic on and... Yeah, it's on.
Good evening. Scott LeMay, CEO, United Material Management. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening, counselors. I'm getting used to this room. So as you know, this is our facility before we added the addition. We employ about 40 people in various positions, managers, sales associates, accounting staff, admin, CDL drivers, equipment operators, mechanics, welders, etc. We generate about $200,000 a year in revenue for the city of Holyoke through various host community benefits and taxes. As you can see over to the right, that's the addition that we recently built, and we put in a series of recycling equipment in our facility. So now we are no longer just a transfer facility. We have a series of mechanized processes in order to recycle much of the material that we take in and maximize resource conservation. This is just a snapshot if you looked at it like without the roof of the building and the series of equipment that we utilize in order to recycle the products there. This just gives you a quick example of another facility that's an air separator that kicks out aggregates. That's what it looks like as it comes out of the machine. That gets reused. Just an example of the upfront screens that we use. This is a device called an eddy current. So when you try to get metals off of a conveyor, non-ferrous material does not attract to a magnet, so we actually put a small charge in it, and it will repel the non-ferrous materials as well. Just an example of the types of metals that will be kicked off. This really isn't here for this evening, but this is the traffic flow that we utilize at our facility, and we're looking at doing a small change in that flow so that it'll operate a little bit more efficiently. I don't know if any of you know the small brick building that we have office staff in right now, but certainly Councilor Roman knows. He's walked the property in detail, but so we're probably going to enter at some point in time in that property and have much more queuing area, and so that we'll enter there and then exit on Berkshire. We think that's a better flow. I'm sure you all know about our maintenance facility that you recommended to approve several months ago and ultimately got approved at City Council. Mitch, can you go back to that slide? So the property, when you look at Berkshire Street and you look at where the proposed maintenance building, the property in question is directly across Berkshire Street. It just gives you some idea of how this will all tie together, and there's a slide that later on that will show you that shows you how it ties together. Those are profiles that I believe you've already seen. So I know that we're talking about this property that Marcos had just mentioned on the corner of Main and Berkshire. The reason I walked you through that is that I think as you assess whether or not we should be the buyer of this property, and if you look at it individually and just say, is this the highest and best use for a company that needs additional equipment, storage areas, I think it goes much deeper than that. It's part of a business that's been growing here that has a significant tax base, supplies the city with, I think, important infrastructure in order to move its material and services, the Department of Public Works and their collection efforts, and our overall employment initiatives, recycling initiatives, resource conservation initiatives, and how we participate within the neighborhood. We just wanted to walk you through that real quick of kind of what we do in total. So as you look at this, you realize we're not just trying to buy this one lot in order to store equipment. We want to purchase this lot because it ties into our overall business. And as many of you know, when you go to the transfer station property, we need the entire front of that building for our queuing areas, our weighing areas, and our office staff. And now we added this addition, so we're kind of limited for space there. So when that property came up, we viewed it as a natural addition to us to be able to run the business more efficiently.
Okay, so Scott, what is it in that, if you do purchase that property, what's the plan to, is there, so Marcos, there's nothing on there now, is that all, that Automania, is that all torn down? Yes. It's all demoed, right?
Yes, it's currently flat.
Okay, so you would just build Scott, you just build a new building?
We wouldn't build anything because we're building that building right on the corner,
Okay,
which should look, I think, very nice. It's a vacant lot, and we wanted to preserve the grass that's around the front of the corner as you approach that, and blend it in with I think many of you know the gray stone fencing that we use, or synthetic stone fencing that we use, that we're going to tie that in, leave grass area in the corner, and then right across the street, the lot in question for this evening, really all we want to do is fence it in and use it for storage.
that's okay, I wasn't clear on that, so. All right, Scott, anything else you want to add? I want to open up the questions, so.
I think that's it.
Okay, councilors have questions? Hold on, council and the committee have questions? Councilor Leahy.
Yes, hi, thank you. as always, Scott always does a great job. A couple of things. One is he always prepares to the T with all the information whenever he's in front of us. As he said, he's been here numerous times. I got to know Scott many years ago, and I have walked, not so much, actually he wanted me to walk. He said he brought Counselor Roman all the way around. I got there, and I was in the mood for walking, but I could turn and look at everything. I saw the excellent job that he did, and he did tell me at the point where he wanted to purchase the land across the street. We sat there and we looked at it. I think it's a natural fit. I think he's not only a great business person, I also think he's a great friend to the city of Hoyoke, and he stays true to his word, and we have proof of that with all the other projects he's done. So I just want to speak in behalf of Scott and this property. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Leahy, appreciate that. Councilor Roman?
Yes, as the Ward 2 counselor, and just this Sunday, we had our Ward 2 neighborhood cleanup, and we were in the Springdale Ingleside neighborhood, and we didn't have to pick up around your property. It's actually well maintained, and I see your guys actually going around on the sidewalks and streets. So we could ask for no better friend in the neighborhood and in the ward. So I too will speak in favor of this. I look forward to seeing this addition, and I like that overlaid map. There's other development proposed in that neighborhood, and we welcome this kind of partnership. So I look forward to supporting this, and I think it's going to be good for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Yeah, so Scott, you're gonna get a big collective hug from this committee, so congratulations on that. But really, I gotta, Marcos really should be credited, Johnny, and all that, the hard work and getting that lot cleaned up. That was a lot of hard work, gentlemen, so, that's how we got to this point. So, well, fencing it in is, down the road, maybe you'll build something in for Councilor Leahy or whatever, monument to Councilor Leahy. But for right now, I'm good to go. Any other questions? Anybody else want to give Mr. Lemay a hug? No, we're all set? Okay, Scott, thank you. And to your associate, thank you. Okay, gentlemen, do you want to add anything else? Lady, Ms. Lori? No? All set? Okay. Want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we
Motion to approve?
approve the acquisition of the building, the lot.
Sale, okay.
Sale of the lot.
Approve the sale?
Second.
Okay, this is a motion to approve the sale of lot for is it $30,000? $30,000, Lori? And Lori, that's a fair price as far as you're concerned. I think the assessment is $24,500. Okay. Mic on, Lori?
Thank you. After everything came through, we were able to have a additional conversation with Scott, and he actually was able to increase his offer, so.
But the offer is 30.
The offer is 30, he
30,
came
okay.
in under that, and under the circumstance where we had, just one offer, we were looking, obviously for more, and, since he was the only one, as the procurement officer, I have little leverage to ask for a better offer, and he came back with a better offer.
Okay.
So
Scott,
I
thank
would
you.
like to bring that up as well
Well,
as
No,
that.
it's noteworthy. I'm glad you did. Okay. All right, so we have a motion made by Councilor Roman, seconded by Councilor Tallman, to approve the sale for $30,000, or the other way around. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, none. Okay, everybody is fully approved. Okay, Scott, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you know how this works. We recommend to City Council, and we'll vote on it August 1st, okay? All right, thank you very much for that. Okay, approved.
Motion to take up item number 5.
Item number 5. We have a motion that's made and seconded to take item number 5 off the table. On the motion, all in favor? Aye, that motion is approved. Motion is that the City Council vote to accept an offer from Thomas Cusano to purchase a parcel of land and a building located at 1 Cabot for $200,000. Said parcel is approximately 2.28 acres with a building approximately 200,000 square feet in size. Property is zoned IG and has an assessed value of $410,200. Mayor's acceptance letter and additional information have been submitted to the council. And so we have with us Mr. Merrill, Ms. Belanger, Mr. Dijak, and I think Mr. Casano. Okay, Mr. Casano. All right, so Mr. Merrill, why don't you set us up, please?
Sure thing. So the property of 1 Cabot Street is rather large mill on the eastern edge of downtown Holyoke on Cabot Street, just next to the Willimantic Bridge. It sits right on the gateway. It's about 200,000 square feet, pretty old. And for the past several years, it's been occupied. Actually, it's been a paper binding business for a long time. It's changed names, it's changed focus, I believe. But in the past several years, it's been specialty loose leaf. The property was taken several years ago by the city before my time, as I understand it. And it's been a situation where the city has had a tenant, which we're not built to do, but so be it. That's been the situation.
Marcos, what's the tenant? Just remind me, I'm sorry.
The tenant is Specialty Loose Leaf.
Okay.
They're a paper
Okay, so
binder producer.
They're still a tenant, and how much space are they taking up? Well, do we have a lease with them?
There's an agreement with the treasurer's office, written or verbally, I'm not entirely sure. They are paying rent to the city, about $2,100 a month. The main space that they occupy is the basement and pretty much the entire first floor. There's potential there for, potentially some consolidation. As an outsider, it's hard to say how much of it is completely critical to have and what is kind of like, you have a 200,000 square foot building, you have no competition for space, and you just splurge out. It's just human nature. There was a proposal before the council some time ago, I want to say maybe around a year ago, 2 years ago, well, how time flies, where we had done an RFP before for the building, and we only got one proposal. That was from the tenant, Specialty Loose Leaf. At the time, I believe the proposal was $10,000, and that was rejected by this body and by the full council. As you smile proudly, yes.
Remember the vote very well.
So we went back at it, and we were more aggressive in marketing the property. We received 5 proposals this time around. The proposal before
Really?
you...
5 proposals?
Correct.
Where'd you market the property?
We added a couple of outlets online and in the New England Journal of the New England Real Estate Journal.
We got to thank Councilor Sullivan for that one. He kind of spurred you on a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right.
Several years ago, I think about 2 years ago, that was one of the first things that Councilor Sullivan and I talked about, more prominent marketing budget.
Okay,
and
so
we
you got
started
5 proposals. All right.
So the proposal before the proposals were scored, and the one deemed more highly advantageous is the one presented to the council, which is the one from Tom Cusano. Tom runs a very similar building in New Hampshire, about 200,000 square feet as well. He has multiple tenants, and he was proposing a similar mix as that he has in his industrial building in New Hampshire. He has very good recommendations from his own Office of Economic Development up there in New Hampshire, working with the city, with inspectors, and whatnot. The purchase price is $200,000, and in his proposal, he would like to close pretty much immediately and start work now in September before the frost, which is also a very interesting proposition for the city, seeing as we have liability of such a big property with a tenant. He's also willing to work with the existing tenant to see how they can be consolidated in a specific space in the building. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I think he can speak much better to the details of his proposal. So if it pleases the committee, I would turn it back to the chair or to Tom.
Can I ask one question?
Well, you are...
You are the chairman, so I'm just asking permission to ask one.
Councilor McGivern.
The reverter language, what reverter language? I mean, can we have a copy of it?
Yes, I think what we haven't signed anything yet, but what What I think the latest that we're proposing is having somewhat of a scaled reverter. What we found is that a dollar reverter on a large purchase tends to scare away a buyer, so I think that's something that we still haven't fully discussed with the buyer. But certainly a reverter is something that we always want to have on a property, because we don't want someone just sitting on a property not doing anything. It's a bottom line protection for the city.
What kind of timetable on that type of language would the city look for?
Usually we look for 2 years. In a rare exception, we could consider longer, maybe 3 years. But, really, if 2 years has gone by and there's been no action, what's the likelihood that anything is going to happen? This is all based on a proposal that has a time frame and a timetable. And we all know that setbacks occur, things that you don't foresee. But in the absence of that, we don't just want to wait 5 years or 10 years.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know councilors have other questions for Marcos and maybe for Lori and for John, but Mr. Cusano, well, welcome to Holyoke. I'm sure you've been here many times, but nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And so we do have your technical proposal, and so if you want to walk through, not to go through every gory detail, but why don't you hit the highlights for us? And why don't you give us a little touch on your background? That's probably helpful. And then how you came to bid on this project, that would be helpful to me. How you caught sight of it, and then why don't you tell us what you want to do?
Yeah, the property in Rochester, New Hampshire that he mentioned we bought in 2004 was a foreclosure property that the Small Business Administration had taken over. And it's kind of the joke about that is that I went to the auction to buy a forklift. I didn't get the forklift, but I bought the building. And my wife, who was sitting here, will testify to that.
You're still your wife, so there you go. It all worked out in the end.
I told her about it a day or two later. But the background I had before that was basically self-employed, worked in family business from the time I was old enough to make change and stand behind a counter and sell food. Started essentially a wood stove business back in the first energy crunch of the early 1970s. Operated that for 38 years. And on the off season, you only had to work 6 days a week, and during the busy season, you worked a 7-day week, and a 12-hour day was only half day. So, I mean, we're used to really working hard and to make things go. But a couple years ago, my sons and daughters were old enough to take over the daily operations of the wood stove business, which allowed me to focus 100% on the property in Rochester. And since that happened, we were able to get more done and get better tenants in. We went through the crash of 2008, quite a learning experience when you've got 6 or 8 tenants and 75% of them walk out the door owing you a ton of money, and you just wave by as their trucks go down the road and you're never going to pay for it. So we worked with the City of Rochester. Their Economic Development Department is just great to work with, as the entire city is very pro-business and wanted to see this mill building that was in severe disrepair revived. The Spalding Fiber Company was the matriarch of Rochester, New Hampshire. If you go up in that area, you see the Spalding Turnpike, the Spalding High School, the Spalding everything. Well, the Spalding brothers built the area. We're an international company, but they started in Rochester. So they built and donated actually 3 high schools throughout New England. So we were kind of proud to take over this property as the 3rd owner in 100 years and get to work on it, getting it back up to a respectable level. And we essentially did it on shoestring budget, which meant we really had to work hard, and every dollar that came in went back into the property. We have a 54-acre site. It's got a hydroelectric generator on it. We've got a dam, a pond. So we deal with FERC and all the regulations. We had the infamous floods of Mother's Day 2006. We did probably, the guys from FERC said we did about $2 million worth of restoration to the dam and spillway, but we did it with $65,000 out of pocket and a lot of sweat. So they were impressed and actually sent us a letter of accommodation, which the association, and the Granite State Hydro Association, is about 60 or 70 small hydro producers. And when I was at an annual banquet, and they said, how'd your inspection go? And I said, pretty good. I got a letter of accommodation. Well, it was just like that commercial where, you know, E.F. Hutton says something and the whole room stopped and they all came over and said, you got what? I said, yeah, is that unusual? And they said, we'd never seen one of those before. So we did it because the work we do on the building, the work we did on our dam and spillway was not because we tried to meet the minimum requirements. We wanted to make it the best we possibly could, the safest we possibly could. So we went well above what was asked of us because it was our property. It was our facility. So it wasn't just a matter of dollars and cents. It was personal pride. I heard about the building down here actually before the RFP went out. One of my tenants in Rochester, as it mentions in our RFP, is a medical marijuana cultivation site. There are 2 licensed sites in New Hampshire, and because of our proactive stance and the city of Rochester, we were able to get one of the 2 to locate at our place. They use a lot of electricity, so we wanted to sell them electricity off our hydro site. We got a lot of experience, you know, on how the whole procedure worked, how to deal with that type of tenant, what was required for security, what their needs were. We built another site in Lebanon, Maine. Maine has a different program. We built a small facility over there for medical marijuana cultivation. And when we heard about the building down here, it was right after the announcement that it was made that Holyoke was interested in having, you know, medical cultivation sites located here as part of the rehabilitation of the city. So we sent a letter in to John, told him we were interested to come down and look at the city and meeting with him, just told him of our background. We're pretty much no nonsense. We go in, see what job needs to be done, get the job done, and do it as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible. Our market in Rochester is very similar to what you have down here. It's not a boom town. It's kind of an older mill town that is on the side of recovery. I live about an hour away in the state capital of Concord, where you could lease warehouse space for $8 to $10 a square foot all day long. In Rochester, I couldn't get $2.50 a square foot. As we rehabilitated the building and got it looking better and made the inside space look better, now we're able to get $4.50 a square foot. So what I learned along the way was it's the cart before the horse. You know, you need some money coming in, so you want to get a tenant, but you can't get a good tenant unless you fix the place up. But you can't fix the place up until you get the money coming in. So what's nice with our ability now is we're in a financial position where we can do the work first and then attract the quality tenant. When I saw the building down here, I was excited about it. You know, we looked at other buildings in town, but this one is, I call it a gateway. It's right there next to the Willimantic Bridge, which has been totally redone. It's beautiful. Amtrak and the trains come in on the other side of the building, and it's Canal Street. Canal Street, yeah, is the road out in front. And when I looked at the character of the building and what it had to offer, it's a diamond in the rough. This is not just a matter of we're going to come in and fix it up enough to attract good tenants. We want to make this the best looking building that we can possibly make it, and the entire site, so that when people come in on the train from Amtrak, they look at it and go, wow, this is pretty cool, this is nice. They want to get off the train and come downtown and get something to eat. I made a comment to Marcos right now. I said if I was coming on the train and this is the first building I saw, I wouldn't want to get off the train. I'd stay on there because it's pretty scary looking. And mostly because the same thing, I went into Rochester, the building had been kind of in receivership for a number of years, and nobody had repaired anything. Well, now that the city's had this taken for taxes, the tenant is not responsible for the maintenance of the grounds in the building. The city really doesn't have the resources to do it, so it's kind of gone unchecked for about 4 or 5 years. And I could tell that Amtrak really didn't care about it either, because they left all kinds of debris and rails and everything sitting right on the side of it, in plain sight as you come in on the train. I was thrilled to see what's going on in Holyoke. I'm a huge fan of historical buildings, the architecture here. Just this building, the room. I said to my wife when we came in, I said, is this the coolest room we've ever been in a long time? You know, just what's here is amazing. And to revive it and be part of that restoration to me is just a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll have another talk another day about historical building. It's about 117 years old, but that'll be a talk for another day, Mr. Cusano. Nothing to do with you. So thank you for that. Thank you for your enthusiasm. I know I have a couple of questions, but do any counselors have questions for Mr. Cusano? And then we'll just kind of turn it over to Marcos. You want, Councilman McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, thank you for the presentation and a very interesting proposal. When I was asking Marcos about the reverter, the part of your proposal, and if you could go into a little bit more detail, is immediate improvements to the building. And by that I mean, solid improvements to the roof, solid improvements at this building as your build out, as you're seeking additional tenants, as you're preparing for additional tenants. The building is going to be architecturally sound, and it's not something where you're just going to milk it for a period of years and then dump it back on us. What in details, what are the improvements you're going to make immediately?
Just so I get it accurate, let me actually flip to that page. Page 4 of our proposal, we kind of broke it down as best we could. Our total budget through the first 3 years we expect to be for repairs and maintenance on the building about $750,000. Phase 1, which we hope to get done this fall, if the weather cooperates, is about $175,000 worth. Essentially, most of that would go into the exterior. Clean up the site, repair the fences, cut brush, add new lighting to the parking lot to the building, clean up the brick facades. The building, actually, I think is a red brick underneath all that black soot that's stuck to it. Repair the damage to the brick, repair the parking lots, remove out-of-use stacks and venting. There's a number of old, huge funnels that are coming up the side of the building that haven't been connected for decades. Seal and repair the roof leaks, clean up the old windows, remove loose and falling materials and paint where needed. So that's kind of a 2-month schedule, about as much as we can possibly get done on the outside. On the interior, the heating system, when Holyoke went away from a central steam system, then the building doesn't have central heat. They've added basically some electric motoring heaters, so you get a 200,000 square foot mill building heated with electricity. Now, I know electricity is not real expensive down here, but it's still no way to heat an old mill building that's drafty. So we already have in stock a number of natural gas motoring heaters, new ones, that we would immediately get into the building to replace the electric heat. Just to 2 reasons: one, to make it affordable, and the other so that it can be a little bit warmer in there, because a cold building, there's parts of the building where the paint is peeling off in sheets, and that's just because it wasn't maintained at a high enough temperature. The other part would be to remediate any hazardous materials that are on site, general cleaning, removing of unwanted materials, pointing and sealing any leaks in the brick, sealing and preserving of any wood that's been getting wet and damaged, and then inspect and service all electrical and mechanical systems, elevators, sprinkler systems, all that. The insurance company's going to want to see certificates on it immediately. The elevators have been maintained and inspected, which is good. The sprinkler system is going to need a full inspection. It looks to be in good operating condition. The other thing that they may require us to do right off, which would bump the first year budget up, is the fire alarm system. Part of it is just internal. I think there is a connection to the outside blocks to report to the fire station. But either Tesla or somebody in his era is the one who installed that fire alarm panel, because it's older than me. It's got big red light bulbs in a box. So it's about going to be one of the first, annunciator systems ever put into service. It's older than old. It may still function, it may not function, but the insurance company, may come in right off the bat and say, we want this system upgraded, and that could be an additional $50,000 system, but which has actually worked out good, because 4 or 5 years ago it would have been a $200,000 system. Now, because electronics have come down so much in price, it's about $50,000 to do the whole building.
Sprinkler system?
The annunciator panel, if a sprinkler head goes off, they want to know what part of the building that sprinkler head's going off in, so the fire department can arrive to a panel out front that says, you know, room 22, third floor, that sprinkler head went off or that detector went off.
The existing sprinkler system will pass the fire department.
It looks like it'll pass fire department. It's all pressurized and operating at this time.
Tom, the roof, in the first 3 years, you said seal the roof and seal the leaks. What's the
Yeah.
long-term outlook for the roof?
The long term, we'll take a full inspection on the roof to see, you know, what it's gonna require. It may be good for a year or two, but that's about it. You know, the entire roof's gonna have to be replaced. I had a price on our roof in Rochester, about the same square footage of that roof, and they want more than the cost of the building to replace that part of the roof. They were talking $362,000 to do about 40,000 square feet of roof. So to replace the roof entirely will be a major cost, and we'll just have to see, you know, what the roof experts take a look at and see if it can be repaired, you know, to get another 5 or 10 years, or if it's got to be replaced in 2 years.
And your ability to replace the roof, will that hinge upon the tenants that you get? Or is it something you can do quicker?
No, we can do it quicker. You basically, you want to try to get the roof repaired before you get tenants in there if possible, because replacing that roof is not a clean job, and could end up with quite a bit of mess coming into the building.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Tom, just on your proposal here, intended use of the property. So first of all, thanks so much for your interest in Holyoke, you know, and your enthusiasm. You know, I don't want to dispel any of that. That's really important. So we have verbal commitment from 2 medical cannabis companies that desire about 30,000 square feet each. So it's 60,000 square feet, and the building is what, 200,000 square feet? So it's, you know, you're thinking that's more or less a third of your, a little less than a third. So it took us a while, and we finally granted one license for a property down on yeah, I can't remember the number of Appleton, no. 28 Appleton.
Yep.
So, and that was a long, arduous process, and because, of course, they had to apply to the Commonwealth and get all permitted that way, and then finally they loop back to us. So how realistic is it that you're gonna not just get one, but get 2? I mean, that's a...
Well, there's plenty of companies out there that are looking for space. I've dealt with a number of tenants and small business people, and I've heard about every story that you could possibly hear. And having been in business for almost 40 years before I started dealing with tenants, I knew all the stories. But they come in and they'll tell you a song and dance, and the people in the medical cannabis business are no exception, and can tell you just the most incredible tales and put on a presentation that just makes you think they're the Rockefellers when in fact they're just totally lying through their teeth. So you have to approach it totally with your eyes open. If somebody comes forward, if they've done their due diligence already, if they already own a license with the state of New Hampshire, you're still looking at 12 to 24 months before they're ready to move into the building. So you could secure a tenant, but it doesn't mean they're going to be up and operating, you know, anytime soon. So we're hoping that Specialty Loose Leaf is going to stay. We've had initial conversation as to what their needs would be. So we just recently, so we're working on it from that perspective. We have a company that John and Marcos have met that called GS Thermal Solutions. They are interested in leasing space from us. They are building new high-tech LED lighting and cooling systems that can be used not just in the medical cannabis, but all indoor horticultural systems. They've been winning grants from universities, and they're talking with Eversource and these companies because their technology is really breakthrough in the amount of energy savings that they're putting forward. They're currently in Danbury, Connecticut, and they like the area. They really like the building. They went on the tour with me, and they already picked out the space they want.
Okay, so, all right, so I read that, but it sounded like that, you know, maybe that was an initial Tom, I just think that's really not super likely you're gonna get two. Maybe at some point way down the road, you might get one. But,
Yeah, well, it's not hinging on anything to do with the medical cannabis. I mean,
Okay.
we can fill that up with just regular tenants.
okay, so, that gives me a little more.
The advantage to the cannabis industry is twofold for us. One is they employ a lot more people per square foot than most businesses. You know, you think about just the growing plants, it doesn't do anything, but from what I've seen with our tenant in Rochester, New Hampshire, they employ a lot of people. It takes a lot of people there every day working to keep the operation going. And it doesn't have to be high-skilled labor, you know, so that often is good. Rochester had a real abundance of lower-skilled labor, which is very affordable, and with the high amount of labor they need, the lower price they can get them at is better, almost like farm worker labor, not, you don't need IT people. The other part of it is they can afford to pay a higher per square foot price than the average tenant. So if we keep some space in reserve, possibly to get somebody in there, they are more likely, instead of paying like $4 a square foot, you could get $6 or $8 a square foot.
Okay, so, all right, Tom, thank you. That's it. I know, Councilor Sullivan, you want to address a couple of questions to Marcos? Are you ready?
Yeah, and,
Answer,
maybe,
Tom?
yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Well, Tom, is there anything else going down the road you're going to be looking for from the city, such as, TIFs or any other enticements being offered by the city that you're going to need to make this successful?
No. As with all our other projects and businesses, we don't ask for any grants or handouts or anything. We do it all on our own. And we work very closely with the code enforcement people to find out ahead of time what's required, so that we don't go into a project blind and then all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, this is going to cost $500,000, and we thought it was going to cost $50,000. So we try to know the score so that we don't get blindsided. And we hope to fix the property up so that we're actually doing the opposite. We want to generate as much taxable income as possible for the city of Holyoke, because that can be used, you know, for good use in the city.
Okay. You mentioned the lower skilled jobs. You seem to have a lot of experience with the tenants there. Do you know what kind of wages they're paying their workers in that industry?
They, depending on what the person's job was, they start about $10 an hour for just the basic labor, and they're averaging 12 to 15 an hour, you know, for the general laborers. They've got some high-skilled workers, they're paying them a fortune, but I'd say in the general range of 10 to 15 an hour for starting wages. And they're all giving them full-time employment. They're not giving them 20 or 30 hours a week. They're giving them 40 or more.
Okay. Thank you. Marcos, was this the highest bid that was received?
When you say highest bid, do you mean the highest monetary?
The highest monetary bid? Right?
No. This was a request for proposals, not a monetary bid. So what's being given priority is the technical proposal before us. There was one proposal at a higher amount. There were two proposals at $200,000. There was one at $10,000, and one at $30,000.
So there was nothing higher than 200,000?
Yes, I said there was one, 309.
Right. So we had one offer for 309,000. What other criteria was? I mean, I see some of the criteria was ordered, but what would have been a disqualifying factor for a higher bid?
I don't see it as a disqualifying factor. It's not disqualifying a higher bid. When you do a request for proposals, so let me go through the difference between a bid and a request for proposals. In a straight bid, you write minimum qualifications, and as long as you meet the qualifications, then the highest bid is chosen. So that is based solely on price. That is not what we did with the request for proposals. With the request for proposals, you're saying, we want to see the best technical proposal for the city, and there's separately a price bid attached to that. So it's not a matter of rejecting the highest monetary offer. It's a matter of getting what's the highest and best use for the site.
All right, so in the higher bid, what would be the things that were proposed in that bid that, or that weren't proposed in that bid that are in this bid that would make it more in our favor to take something for 100,000 less?
It wasn't a bad bid. I would say it wasn't as solid and as reassuring as this proposal. A few of the things that notably, it relied very heavily on HG&E financing. It relied very heavily on, as I think Ton was alluding to, getting income from tenants in order to be able to make more investments. It was relying on the SREC program, the Solar Renewable Energy Credit Program from the state, in order to do rooftop solar as an income stream. I personally thought that was a bit unrealistic. SREC 2 is ending very soon, and given the status of the current roof, the timeline for approval for not just approval through the council, but also what would naturally be several months due diligence process, you would run into the winter. Anyone would have a really hard time securing the SRECs at this point. After the current deadline, I'm not sure if it's January or somewhere through March, the next SREC program essentially makes it unreachable for municipal utilities, or areas where municipal utilities are in, such as ours. I mean, I can go into other stuff. The tenant programming, it was about having like industrial co-working space. It wasn't clear that that the management group or the development group had experience with that type of development, or at least if they did, they didn't make it evident. In this proposal, it was very evident that Mr. Cusano and his management team was running a very similar shop in a similar city, in a similar condition. So it wasn't a matter of saying that one proposal was bad, but it was very evident, very clear to the committee reading them that there was one aligned with the goals that the city had. And so, potentially going with a proposal that had slightly higher monetary return in the short term, we did not felt secure that it was the best proposal that we had.
Okay. Is under this current proposal or any other one we entertain, but particularly this one, is there any liability left if this goes through to the city for any hazardous waste, either left in the building or in the property or in the soil, or is that all off the city's?
My understanding is that there wouldn't be. When a municipality takes a property for tax title, we're not in the title chain in the same way as you would be when you acquire it voluntarily. It's seen as an involuntary acquisition by the city. My understanding is that we wouldn't be liable for any leftover contamination. We certainly haven't caused anything there. The city hasn't done anything on the site. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no environmental condition on the site.
I'm sure to the best of all of our knowledge, we both have quite a bit of experience, and Lord knows what you're going to unearth when you go to redo even a parking lot in the city. So, but there is no continued liability for the city after the sale.
To the best of my knowledge, there would not be, because of the nature of how we came into ownership.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Marcos. I don't want to make it to the best of my knowledge. I want us to get a little firmer on that. And you know why I say that, Marcos? Only because we had that, and to this day I've never seen the deed. When CVS at Beach and Franklin, I guess, Beach and Franklin came in. So that CVS, somehow in that property deed from our crack law department at the time, that deed gave consumer value stores of Providence, frickin' Rhode Island, the power to prevent a sale for the abutting lot. So CVS said to the city of Holyoke, Yeah, you're gonna put a Dollar General store next door? Yeah, no, take a look at the deed we have. It says it right there in that deed, that we can stop that. So that costs the city of Holyoke ultimately $245,000 for 3 years. Now, granted, we did sell the lot, the adjacent lot to East Hampton Bank for $5,000, and I'm glad they've now dug their hole and put up their fence around, let the grass grow 4 feet high around it. I'm sure they're gonna build a very lovely building at some point, but it's way down the road. So I kinda like Counselor Sullivan's questioning in that, to make sure that our, if we do convey out property, that we're not left holding on to any kind of liability, or that our deed, to whatever extent possible, conveys all right, title, interest, and problems, whatever they are, in one Cabot Street.
Sure, and maybe I can clarify what I mean by my answer. So take Automania, for example. It was taken by a tax title. Because we owned it at the time that we knew there was contamination, in fact, actually, DEP wasn't even forcing us. They weren't fining us on Automania for some reason. But because we held it, we were expected to clean it, and we wanted to clean it because we wanted to sell it, which is what you just voted on. But as far as our responsibility as being in the chain of title, we would not be responsible. I can give you a categorical answer on that. When a city takes a property for back taxes, you are not considered as being in the chain of title and being responsible. Now, I can't tell you categorically that if someone 10 years ago from the city dumped, oil from DPW trucks, and that's proven, we wouldn't be responsible. It may well be if we were responsible for something, but in all likelihood, anything in that building is based off of 100 years of industrial use. We haven't done any industrial use in that building. So as far as anything that likely you would find there, we would not be held liable. We just took it for back taxes. And there's state law holds municipalities harmless of that.
I'm gonna recognize Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marcus, I asked about the reverter language. I think you'll know why. But I think the proposal before us is reasonably sound if the correct reverter language is there. And I think Tom may agree with this, or at least understand where we're coming from. The $200,000, when you couple it with the immediate improvements of over $750,000, and then the roof improvements, to follow, with probably at least an additional $750,000, will give Tom a great building, and give the city of Holyoke a solid building that at that point, his build-out, will be his build-out, but we know the building's not going anywhere. And that's why I asked about the reverter language, because I think that's, for a sale of this magnitude, I think it's important that we know that there's good sound reverter language there protecting the city from what could happen. Not that I think it would. I've never heard a developer sit before us and state, the way Tom did this evening, that he is not looking for additional handouts, and that he's prepared to go forward with good hard sweat, toil, and assets of his, to make this work. And I think that's a testimony to the proposal itself. And a request for a proposal is I had stated this 2 or 3 years ago, was the way to go originally, and to find a proposal that works for everybody. The proposal's taking into consideration the current tenant, is taking into consideration the architecture, is taking into consideration the location, the build out, and to me it makes sense from all points of view. And I just hope that the reverter language is part of the final vote.
Yeah, just on the reverter language, I just want to get Tom's take on this as well, because when he bid on the property, was that part of the RFP conditions, that there'd be a potential reverter in there?
Yes, and it had to be signed. So that by virtue of that, it's already part of the agreement if it's approved.
Okay, and as far as reverter language goes, Marcos, what's your recommendation for how long this cannot be a 1-year reverter, with a project like this.
No. Do you want me to read into record the whole paragraph?
No, just just get to the main point. What is the reverter saying?
Improvements and re-tenanting of the building must begin no later than 6 months from the date of closing. If such development does not begin within the 6-month period, the buyer shall be required to reconvey title to the premise to the seller for 90% of the sale price. So let me preface this by saying, so the reverter allows the city to essentially buy back the building at a discount, and the price goes down as the time goes forward, right? So it's at 6 months, we can get it back for 90% of the value. At, I think at a year, we can get it back for 75%, and at 2 years, we can get it back for 50%. So if something goes wrong in 2 years, we can get it back for $100,000. We would still make $100,000. The reason for us doing that instead of $1 is because if you're talking about a small lot, if you're talking about a $5,000 acquisition, what's a $5,000 risk on something that you have a good understanding that you can manage? When you're talking about a $200,000 square foot building, which is in the, we probably have maybe a dozen of these in the city. These are the rarer ones. You're talking about a considerable risk. So our concern with putting a reverter out there for only $1 is that no one's going to want to take that risk because there are things out of anyone's control that can happen. And then you just lose everything after closing. But at the same time, it has to hurt because otherwise there's no incentive.
Right, so, okay, so Tom, you understand all that?
I reread that as part of the proposal, and we did sign it.
Okay, right, yes. I mean, I guess I'm of the opinion that I'm, to make the reverter go out as far as possible. I mean, I guess I want the developer who's taking this chance and is coming in, I want him to have as much room and flexibility. So in your opinion, Marcos, that's,
I think with his proposal,
scale down is reasonable.
yes, I think it's a reasonable midway point between the reverter has to, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work, right? It has to be a menace to the developer, get going, or we're going to get the building. If it hurts too much, no one's going to bid on it. There's nothing to say that's the minimum condition that he's agreed to. There's nothing to say that, if the conditions allow for it, we could come to an amicable agreement where, it's at an even lower purchase price to get another 6 months, right, or something like that for the reverter. But at least that those conditions have already been agreed to and signed.
Okay, Council Alden?
Marcos, with regards to the current tenant in there, is the city under any liability there to continue a lease or to extend a certain amount of time at the given price, the $2,200 a month?
This probably goes into legal questions that I'm not an expert in. We don't, as far as I know, we don't have a specific requirement to give them like some sort of lead time. The building, the way the RFP is drawn up is it's sold as is, and the preference is to a developer that would want to accommodate the tenant, and that's something that I think almost all proposals wrote in.
Yes, I read the part about, accommodating the tenant. I don't understand how at $2,200 a month, I know why the city did that originally. We were trying to preserve jobs and a company that was a descendant of a company that had a long history in Holyoke. But at $2,200 a month for 100,000 square feet, or so, that's 22 cents a square foot. That's, I think, even in Holyoke, a little bit below market rate.
And we're not forcing the conditions on it. We're not dictating the conditions. So, to your point, you're right, that is way below market. So, the developer is free to negotiate the conditions that would retain an anchor tenant. So there's potentially a mutually beneficial agreement to be had where if someone receives rent, a tenant can remain in their space in an improved space.
I get that. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a liability or a continuing commitment from the city where the developer was stuck with that, or we could be faced with a lawsuit because they were getting unjustly evicted or something. So my question now would go to the purchaser. How under your economic plan do you maintain a subsidized, we do a lot of subsidized housing here. How do you do subsidized tenancy?
Well, I mean, it's simple business that if you rent half the building out at 24 cents a square foot, and that might be a gross rent, not even a triple net figure. 24 cents doesn't really cover the insurance and taxes. So you're not renting the space out for 24 cents, you're giving space away for free and maybe collecting enough to pay the insurance on it. So part of it will be, and the discussions we've had so far is, you know, how much space do they need? Do they need a full 100,000? Can you get by with less than 100,000? Even at 50,000, it's still a very favorable rent. So we would have to just sit down and look at it and, you know, see if we can come to a mutual agreement that'll work for both parties. You know, our goal is to preserve the jobs if at all possible. But at the same token, if you're going to put $1.5 million or $2 million into a building over the next 3 years, you have to have enough income from the building to pay it back. You know, so that's going to be the trade-off: is can we come up with the amount of space at a rate that loosely can afford, that we can afford.
Yeah. And have you had conversations with Loose Leaf about what I assume would have to be a significantly higher rent than what they're paying now?
We just had one meet and greet conversation, and so we kind of presented the facts, and that was just like 10 days ago, and we've had the 4th of July holiday in between, so we haven't really done more than just initial conversation to see what we can work out.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
All right, thanks. Any other counselors? Council Tallman?
Yeah, my concern was Roberta too, and to see that in there, I think that's important. And Tom, thanks for coming in and looking at this, and I feel comfortable with you having a building like this structure in New Hampshire to come in here and try to do something with it. You talk about the proposal, the commitment in a timely manner, so I know you have to do little things, little by little, but how long would it take to shore up things to get this fairly presentable, like 6 months to a year or longer? The basic needs of the building.
I mean, initially I want the outside to improve as much as possible, as fast as possible, not just for everybody's benefit driving by, but for my own benefit. I have to see some progress to keep the enthusiasm going. It's not like my front yard. No matter how hard I try, I've got nothing but crabgrass and dead spots. That gets discouraging. So when you work on a building, we've done it in Rochester, but we had to do it with a shoestring over a 10-year period. This we want to do very quickly. We have the people lined up. We have contractors available. We have the resources to do it quickly, because if we can institute a change within the first 3 months, that when you go by and look at it and you say, okay, this is really going to turn out nice. I've seen it happen in my own town, where you drive by something that's an eyesore for 20 years and you don't even see it. But then somebody from your friend comes out of town and stays there, and you go, what's that? You know, why don't you guys do something about that? And you're like, oh, that's such and such. You know, we don't even look at that. So when all of a sudden it changes and you make a dramatic change very quickly, then you go by and you say, okay, this is going to come out nice. And that's the enthusiasm that we want to create in the city as well as for ourselves. So we want to make a change very quickly, you know, before the snow flies, if at all possible. And then we'll rest up during the winter and shovel snow to stay in shape, and then be back at it as soon as the snow melts.
Yeah, I think that's important, not only for, you know, just the building and your ownership of it, but trying to get people in there and tenants that make it, you know, viable, you know, for you and for the building, for the city too. That's important.
It's just plain human nature. If you go even look at a house to buy and it's in total disrepair, number one, if you can get your wife out of the car to even go in the house, you've made a great stake. I ran into that in Rochester when we first bought the place. You know, I thought it looked okay, and I actually brought some pictures, some before and after. You're welcome to have some. But as we made changes and improvements to the building, and it was just one at a time, and we have a dozen tenants in there, people kept coming up and saying, wow, you've done such a great job of the place. It looks wonderful, and I'm still looking at what's got to be done. You know, I haven't got to the enthusiasm yet. But then I went back and looked at the pictures of what it looked like when we bought it, and I said, oh yeah, we have made some amazing changes to the place. But we want to do that very quickly down here, because when a tenant walked in Rochester, I couldn't give them the space. They just didn't want to be there. You know, they just kind of like, I don't know. this, I don't like the color. You know, what they were just saying is this is too dumpy for our business. We want something that looks a little nicer, a little classier. So if we try to rent it out immediately as it stands, we're just not gonna attract
Not
good
gonna-
tenants. You know, so we have to move very quickly and get it really looking sharp, because then somebody's gonna drive in and say, this is where I want my business.
And I think the plan, that's important. You coming in and already having the experience with the building, that's important. That even though the price may be a little bit lower than one of the bids we got, you want somebody that's going to be doing something and have a payback to the city, not only to the city, but to the area down there. And I really have a lot of confidence that that'll happen with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Chairman, make a motion that we accept allow the city to accept the proposal as presented to us for the $200,000.
yeah, this motion made and seconded to accept the proposal before us. Just under discussion, Marcos, thank you, John, thank you, and, I see your hand raised. I had not planned to. Not a public hearing. Well. Oh, you're the specially loose leaf tenant? Okay, well, I'll settle down. So I'll tell you what I'll do is we have a motion, but I'll ask the committee now. It is 2 minutes to 9 o'clock. I will ask the committee if they want to suspend our rules to allow the public, now we're not, this is not a public hearing, so we have to suspend our, hold on, I know. So we have to suspend our rules. Generally, we do. Generally, we do that. So, but my rule is still going to be the same as the 2-minute rule. So you can get it out in 2 minutes, hopefully, and then I assume you wanted to do the same thing. Okay. All right. So if we do suspend our rules, you're going to come up to the mic. You're going to state your name, your address, and then you'll have up to 2 minutes to address us. Okay. So well, hold on a second. Councilman Gibbon, you want to speak?
Before we act on that motion,
I haven't even made the motion, so.
well, do motion coming.
Yeah, motion.
I have a couple of legal questions about that. Marcos, is there other proposed RFP proposed people in the room this evening that answered the RFP?
United Innovations is one of the bidders.
Okay.
David White is here.
Okay.
David White? Okay, so essentially, we're being asked to listen from what your office, I'm assuming, for the mayor's office, has already negotiated and talked to these people. The negotiations are not, or are we allowed to enter into negotiations?
What's before you is only the proposal by Tom Cusano, the executive.
I know what's before
Yep.
us.
Yep. So
But I don't want to make a motion to allow other proposals, because we cannot negotiate,
that's correct.
you know, and that's my legal question. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, that
to
is. You are
identify.
correct. Yes.
So we will not be negotiating on a price. So whether there's a question mark, and I will cut you off. I will do it, and that'll be that. So, but if you want to address us in a reasonable way, reasonable tone, we'll see if we'll vote on it first. Okay, with that in mind, I'll make a motion to allow the public to address us for up to 2 minutes on this topic.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that motion is made and seconded. On that motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that's 4-0. Okay, so why don't you come up to the microphone, give name and address. Hold on a second. Fire away.
My name is Chris Parent. I own specialty loose leaf assets through the company United Innovations. I also own Signature Engraving System on 120 Whiting Farms Road and Valley Graphics. My mom and dad, Lou and Bev Parent, were born in the flats of Holyoke, and my dad operated his business, United Engineers, in Holyoke for 20 years. My companies have operated in Holyoke since 1994 and have supplied the city close to $2 million in revenue. Especially Loose Leaf has been making binders in Holyoke as a business for 125 years, about as old as that bridge that we spent, $10 million on, the Willimantic Bridge. We bought the assets of Specialty Loose Leaf when that business went out of business, mostly because the gas and electric shut off the steam heat. And that business went out. We bought their assets because I didn't want another business to go out from my dad's memory. We employ 25 people now. Especially Loose Leaf employed several hundred people over the years and gave to Holyoke a lot of money. We made the deal with Elaine Pluta when I bought the assets. The deal was that the previous company owed $200,000 in gas and electric and $200,000 in taxes. I agreed to pay and have paid religiously $100 a month to those back payments. She also said it was okay for us to pay the lease or the mortgage with the Bank of Westfield. And they were satisfied with their mortgage. And she was going to make her money in the future operation of this business. Very smart move. We've since given $750,000 to the city of Holyoke through gas and electric payments and taxes and rent and whatever else you want to talk about. I would love to increase the heat of that building and change the system. I even asked this board to give me the right to change it without ownership of the building, and they were so nice to give me that. We have supplied RFPs every time it was asked of the city. The last time, the mayor approved our RFP because we were the only ones. And for some reason, the Board of Aldermen said no. And maybe I should have been there to explain our position. So the deal was broke when the city took ownership of that property for back taxes, which we are already paying on. And that's the problem. Now, Tom comes in, you want to sell him the building for $1 a square foot, right? He's a businessman. He's 2.5 hours away. I'm in South Hadley. I've been in Holyoke basically my whole life because my dad and mom loved it. I've been dedicated to every function in this city. Boys and Girls Club, Wisteria Hearst, Children's Museum, you name it, we're involved. If you give this building to anyone else but to the company and the people that operate that, the rent will go up. We're breaking even right now. I would hope in the future, if we get a more economical heating system, we'll be starting to make some profit. But right now, we're just surviving. That means all of the people that rely on our products are still going to get our products. They include the United States Air Force and the President of the United States that takes our binders and uses them for their graduates and for his visitors. They include one of the major companies from Boeing that does instructions for airplanes all around the world. Those are the kind of clients that Holyoke has. And what a great history of 125 years. Those are the things at odds. Now what's coming in? A nice fella, we had a meeting, I said, what can you do for our rent? He's refused to give us an answer. That's your first sign. He's going to rent that place just the way he rented in New Hampshire to marijuana. So what happens? The paper city becomes the pot city. I don't want to see that future. Right now, Colorado is full of statistics that you're welcome to Google, where traffic deaths are up 47% because of marijuana. They ship out. Right now, the illegal drugs leaving that country have gone up, that city, that state, about 450%.
Okay, so Chris, let's get it
This building has limited parking. It's full now with the 25 employees. You'd have to knock some of the structure down. We're landlocked with the railroad on the side and the railroad in front and the bridge on the other side. And if we had the building, I would have increased the looks of that building, just like if you want to drive my other building, the old transcript building on Whiting Farms Road. I think you both agree, all agree, that's one of the finest buildings in Holyoke. And that's what our blood, sweat, and tears. So yes, if you give this company the ownership of that building, you will be for sure surprised at how well that building looks.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Chris, sorry about that. Mr. White, go ahead. Name, address, please.
David White, 27 Hadley Street, South Hadley, Mass. My family has 2 properties in Holyoke. And first of all, I'd like to tell Tom that I think it's a great presentation he made. But one of the differences that we have done the same thing here in Holyoke. We started out maybe 10 years ago and created 60 jobs in one building in Holyoke. In another building, we've created 8 jobs. Glenn, who is with us, has created 20-plus jobs, and we've done it all here in Holyoke. And we submitted the highest bid, and we think it's the highest and most responsible bid. Not only is it 155% higher than Tom's bid, we're talking about creating 300% more jobs in town here. And our focus is not on pot, not growing marijuana. It's growing businesses in town here. And we have taken an old beat-up building here in town, and we have a little different focus than Tom does. We don't start on the inside, we start on the outside, we start on the inside. We make the place workable and livable, not livable, workable, and it brings people in, and when they come in, then we can start to do things on the outside. The only thing we have to take care of is making sure that the business is, or the roof is watertight, and that there are no structural problems in the building. So in this proposal we gave you, we know the cost of rehabbing buildings in Holyoke. On my cell phone, I can push a button and I can get any tradesman in any field to be in my business in less than 2 hours. We know the people, we know how to do it, we've put on roofs, we've put on heating systems. We were impacted by the city of Holyoke Gas and Electric Steam. It nearly put us out of business. We found ways to install much more efficient heating systems in the building. Now our actual cost is lower than it was with the steam. But we've had to work on it. We've gone to engineering companies and designed special thermostats to be installed in the buildings to reduce the heat cost. We have 34 tenants in our building in Holyoke on Ray Street down here, and one of the problems we have is they all like to crank the thermostats up. So we fixed it so that there's a way we can maintain the fire sprinkler system integrity and still keep the building hot and warm. We oversized every single furnace, so somebody walks in there, they can push a button and their space will be more than adequate in less than 15 minutes. And it's the way we designed it. And we have the capability of doing it in that building. Any problem you have in that building, we can take care of. We can do the roof, we can do the sprinklers, we can do the plumbing, and we can build it out so that you're creating 200 plus jobs. And I think that 200 plus jobs is a lot better than growing pot in some building in Holyoke. And I don't think the city of Holyoke wants to become the pot capital of the world. Thank you very much.
Mr. White, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Appreciate both of your presentations.
On the motion?
I'm still in discussion. Well, I'm not going to recognize that for a second. All right, so we did hear from Mr. Perrin, Mr. White. Ms. Murray, you're all set, right? You're all set, okay. All right. Counselors, all set? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much for that. We'll take a vote. So we have motion to approve the sale to Mr. Cusano for $200,000. I don't think there are any conditions on it, correct? We don't have any conditions, so. Okay, on the motion, I think I'll just do a roll call. Counsel Tallman? Yes. Counsel McGivern?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Bartley is a yes, so 4-0. So we do appreciate that. So we're going to recommend it to the full city council on August 1st. And anybody else who wants to weigh in can contact any counselor at that point. To convey property, it does take 10 votes to the city council to convey property out. So it's a 2/3 vote. That's how that works. And we'll leave it at that. So thank you very much. Our next meeting is August 28th at 6:30. I'll take one more motion, please.
Make a motion to adjourn.
On the motion to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.